It began with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, transformed into a magical kingdom. An opening ceremony featuring all the pizzazz you could ever want. It was a day to wave the flag. And oh, what a great day to be an American athlete. Then, amidst all the colorful marching and dancing, came the moment. The Pan Am torch entered the Speedway, and it was time to ignite the competitive drives of 5,000 athletes of the Americas, 38 nations, here competing in 30 different sports. The 10th Pan American Games continue in Indianapolis. Today, live from the Indiana University Track and Field Stadium, you'll see Carl Lewis go for the gold medal in the long jump and take his best shot on this very fast track at Bob Beeman's hallowed record. Next door at the natatorium, Greg Louganis, America's Mr. Gold Medal, will try for another in the 10-meter platform competition to go with the gold he already won in the springboard event. And downtown at the Indiana Convention Center, you'll see live boxing featuring Kelsey Banks, the American world champion who has modeled himself after his idol, Sugar Ray Leonard. Banks will take on Cuba's tough Arnaldo Mesa. It's all coming up today. Welcome to the heartland of America, Indianapolis, as you look live from the Goodyear blimp at the downtown skyline on a rather hot and muggy Sunday afternoon. It is day number 9 at the Pan American Games. Hello again, everybody, and welcome. I'm Brent Musburger, and welcome to our continuing coverage of the 10th Pan American Games. For the next 4 hours, we're going to be here to bring you the finest in amateur sports competition. Now, in addition to the track and field, diving, and boxing, you're also going to be seeing David Robinson and the U.S. men's basketball team in action against Uruguay. The American women's volleyball team, they'll be taking on Peru, and we'll also have the finals of the men's all-around gymnastics competition. Then we're going to send you out west for the live final round coverage of the International. Now, that's the unique golf tournament in which the rules have been altered to reward aggressive play, and where simply parring a hole really does you no good at all. What a magical moment we had yesterday out in baseball. The Cubans had won, they believe, about 30 straight games in Pan Am competition. The last time they lost, Mark Marcus, our color analyst, was playing on the team up in Winnipeg, and the United States upset the Cubans. Yesterday, though, it was a young switch hitter by the name of Ty Griffin. Now, he came to the plate in the 7th inning, and the Americans had fallen behind. Batting left-handed, he ripped this drive down the right field line, above the wall, and it was a home run. Then in the 9th, in dramatic fashion with 2 out, he slammed this one over the left field wall. It bounced once out onto the street. His teammates scoring in front of him, and the United States had upset the Cubans by a score of 6-4. And Ty is standing by live right now. The United States team is practicing at the moment. Ty, you haven't hitting very long. When did you start becoming a switch hitter? Tell me that story.
I started, I guess, C5. I went into the Georgia Tech batting just right-handed, and I kind of struggled doing the part. So Coach Moore suggested that, you know, maybe I had pretty good speed.
Ty, afterwards, I noticed on the monitor we were off the air, but we were still up, and quickly Coach Ron Frazier brought all of you together. He huddled up for a meeting. What was he telling you after this dramatic victory?
Well, he told me we made a great comeback. You know, we fought a hard game, but we did make a couple of errors and mistakes during the game that could have cost us the game. And he said we have to play a little better if we plan on winning the gold.
In other words, you have not wrapped up the gold medal. You could be playing the Cubans again next weekend. Is that right?
Oh, that's exactly right. We've just played a portion of our series now.
All right, Ty, good luck in the following week and as you go for the gold medal.
Thank you.
All right. Now, another result that we left the air before the conclusion, and we had the United States women's basketball team solidly in control, and the Brazilian women really staged a fine comeback, and the U.S. held them off at the end, and it was 84-81. Then last night, I went out to the soccer venue, and it was the largest crowd ever to see a soccer match here in the state of Indiana. And this is a state that loves it. The United States and Argentina were scoreless, and the United States got this breakaway late in the second half. Watch John Hartz. He comes oh so close to putting the United States ahead. He hit the crossbar. And then Argentina quickly rallied, and watch this action in front of the net. A great passing, crossing shot, and then watch the header. This was the critical goal. Oscar scoring it for Argentina. And then in the closing moments, they added a second goal to win it by a score of 2-0. But the United States soccer program seems to be improving. Now, in trap shooting, we had a world record established yesterday by Dan Carlisle of Corona, California, in the automatic trap shooting with 198 out of 200. So for Dan Carlisle, a world mark there. And a quick check of the medal count. As expected, the United States really rolling up the gold, but some of the other countries that are doing well, Cuba with 53 gold medals, strong showing overall by Canada in the Pan Am Games, and Argentina is there. The all-around competition will be coming your way in gymnastics. Scott Johnson, will he pick up another gold? We will have that coverage coming your way here from Indianapolis on CBS as we continue with the Pan American Games in a moment.
CBS Sports coverage of the 10th Pan American Games is
Dome, everybody, for the finals of the men's championship in the all-around competition. Here are the standings. Scott Johnson of the United States leads. He's on a record pace. Now, this score is derived by taking 50% of the performer's individual total after the compulsories and the optionals. Felix Aguilera of Cuba, little more than a half point behind, is in second place, followed by Casimiro Suarez. And hello again, everybody. I'm Tim Brandt. Earlier, we saw the United States with a very courageous performance upset Cuba to win the men's team title. Now, we've got the top 22 competitors, no more than 3 from each team in the Pan Am Games, competing for the all-around title. And working with me again, Kathy Johnson and Bart Connor. And Kathy, let's start with Scott Johnson, because he's had such a marvelous attitude all week and has just seemed honed in on the task at hand.
Well, Tim, early in the season, Scott spoke of a new attitude. Thus, we're seeing a more mature and well-prepared gymnast. It began in June when he won the national championship and continues here in the Pan Am Games. He led his team to victory over the Cubans in the team competition. And now he's expressed his confidence going into the all-around competition.
My main goal was to win the team competition. We had done that now. Now my sights are set on winning the all-around competition. And with that kind of a lead, it gives me a lot of confidence. And well, I hope things go as well Saturday as they did today.
All right, a confident Scotty Johnson. Now, Bart, the guy I like from the Cubans, who is really impressive, is Casimiro Suarez.
And you know, even though he's in third place, you can never quite count him out. First of all, he knows how to win the Pan American Games, as he did back in 1983, where he won the all-around title. He shows a tremendous level of difficulty in his routines with remarkable consistency.
But Bart Suarez, who is a hero in his country because of his success in this sport, is getting old. He's 25 years of age now. He weighs 170 pounds.
And he's at a little bit of a disadvantage here, opening the all-around competition on the pommel horse, because it's not really his best event.
It's going to be hard to gain points on Scott here because he gives a lot away in form and execution.
Now, he does some nice work there with the flared circles and travel. But you can see here he's a little sloppy in the scissors. His toes aren't pointed enough, and a few minor form breaks in knee deductions. You can see here on the flares, he travels all the way across the horse. This is nice work, and hops back into the middle. But where he's giving away valuable tenths are right here, where you can see a bent knee, a hooked toe.
9.35. He has to do better than that to catch Scott Johnson. That is a sarcastic laugh. Suarez has been upset with the scoring in the Pan Am Games all week, but that was not one of his better efforts. Here is the current leader, Scott Johnson, the former University of Nebraska star, the reigning U.S. champion. This is his first event, the vault.
This is usually a good event for Scott. He has good speed, he's very quick into the horse. To lay out Sukahara with a full twist and a great landing.
One of the best qualities of Scott's vaulting ability is right here. Boom! Look at the tremendous block and push off of his arms to get that type of height that he needs to stick the landing.
9.6. 6. He's off to a quick start. Preparing for the pommel horse and currently in second place, Cuba's Felix Aguilera. He's 21 years old, weighs 137 pounds. He's been on the senior national team for 4 years.
I really like his style on every event, but particularly here, he's so smooth, and look at the extension.
He really has tremendous elevation above the horse. Now, he's not doing all the difficult elements. That was a nice combination there. Backmore, Bailey. But what he shows is tremendous lift above the horse. Nice, clean line. Excellent scissor work. Flares travel to a dismount right through handstand.
Aguilera is unusual in that he didn't take up the sport of gymnastics until he was a teenager.
You can see here he is really stretched out, nice tight body line as he travels on a backmore down and a backmore back up to the middle of the horse, right to a move called a pommel Russian to the end.
9.55. So, although Scott Johnson continues to lead, Cuba's Felix Aguilera is just 0.7 of a point behind in second place. Cuba's Casimiro Suarez and Tim Daggett are tied for third. And final rotation. Scott Johnson has increased his lead to 0.75. He's been sharp all day. Now let us take you back and show you his earlier performances.
And Scott has such an aggressive and crisp style. It's very impressive to the judges. But most of all, he really knows how to nail the dismounts.
Scott's wife and parents were urging him on. No surprise that by the time Scott got to the floor exercise, he had tremendous momentum.
He continued to show his expertise here. That was a double layout. And he comes back with one of the more difficult second tumbling runs. A tucked, full twisting double back. Very strong. Nice high, tuck double back, and another good landing.
Cuba's Casimiro Suarez now in second place on the strength of a 9.85 routine on the parallel bars.
And he did a great move right there. It was a back toss with a half turn to an upper arm support. I believe it's the first time we've seen it in international competition. Tosses and stutz, and a tuck double back.
Tim Daggett moved into third place, partially because of this strong routine on the pommel horse.
This is probably the strongest Tim looked throughout the entire competition.
Felix Aguilera fell in fourth place despite this strong showing on the high bar.
And as we saw from the team competition, he really excels on the high bar with some tremendous work with release moves. A one-arm reverse hex with his legs together. Watch this combination. 2 reverse hex in a row.
So when we come back, it'll be Scott Johnson going for his second gold medal, while there is a close battle for the silver and the bronze. Coach Suarez preparing for his floor exercise. He needs a 9.75 to lock up the silver medal.
And wait till you see this guy tumble. He does a tremendous laid out double back for a mount. Here it goes. Look at the height on that. And a beautiful full in for a second tumbling pass. So far, he did the exact same 2 tumbling runs that Scott Johnson used. There's a nice combination, a layout backflip to a punch front.
As strong as he is in the tumbling, his connections are really very weak.
Yeah, the routine really doesn't have the type of flow and the rhythm that you'd like to see, but without a doubt, his explosive tumbling will carry this exercise. Nice tuck double back for just money. Dropped out of the sky on that one. You know, Tim, I really feel he has a decent shot at that 9.75, and what carried that exercise was the height in the tumbling moves. This is his second tumbling run, full twisting double back, but look at the air time. He just drops out of that.
He's got it. That will win Suarez the silver medal. Scott Johnson with the gold medal all but wrapped up still has a shot at the Pan Am all-around point record. He needs a 9.65 to break the old record held by Casimiro Suarez.
He's such a great all-arounder. It's hard to pick his single best event, but I really feel that this is definitely one of them.
Great work on a Maltese cross, lowered to a regular iron cross. One of the reasons why Scott is so outstanding on the rings is that not only is he strong, but watch how he can swing. Beautiful giant swings, topping off right in a very solid handstand. And forward giant swings, 2 in a row. Here's the dismount. A pike full out, and he nails a landing.
Is his family happy?
Scott showed really excellent work with the front giant swings to a locked out handstand. And let me tell you, he finishes this routine off with a gold medal dismount.
The judges are taking a long time on Scott's score. .75 for Scott Johnson. The crowd thought he deserved better. Nonetheless, a new Pan Am Games record. Still in the rings, Tim Daggett needs a 9.55 to win the bronze medal.
And this is a tough event for Tim to have to finish up on, particularly needing a 9.55. And as we noted in the team competition, because of a neck injury he suffered earlier this year, he's not quite as strong as he should be. It was on this event in the compulsory exercises that he had problems. There's no signs of any problems so far. In the optional exercise, you can work around and use your strengths. Here's a dismount, a double layout, and a good landing. He could very well do it. Front giant, right to handstand. Giant swings. Beautiful dismount.
Tim anxiously awaiting the score. He needs a 9.55. That'll do it. He wins the bronze medal. Let's go down now to Bart Connor, who's with the gold medalist, Scott Johnson.
Did you realize going into the rings that you had an opportunity to set a new Pan American Games all-around record?
No, I didn't. I was really surprised, especially, well, I knew that I had set a new record coming into the night's finals, but then after falling off pommel horse, I kind of thought that I had blown that. But so going into rings, our final event, my main concern was just to go up there and do the best set that I could to try to reestablish my all-around score. And then, you know, then I found out that I'd set a new record, and it was really exciting.
Well, congratulations, Scotty.
Thanks, Bart.
So Scott Johnson wins his second gold medal of these games, the all-around title. Cuba's Casimiro Suarez takes the silver, and Tim Daggett of the United States wins the bronze. This is Tim Brand along with Kathy Johnson and Bart Connor, and we're just going to sit back now and enjoy the celebration.
One of those magic moments that concluded last night. You look very fresh for having completed your voiceover at 5 o'clock this morning, Kathy and Bart. Bart, having watched our men, they've been terrific in this competition. Tell me how that bodes for the Olympics in Korea next year.
I think really looking ahead towards '88, you have to remember we'll have to be able to count on Scott Johnson and Tim Daggett to lead the team. Scott has never looked better. He is so strong physically and mentally, better than I've ever seen him. Tim Daggett is coming off that neck injury, but he showed here he's a very gutsy performer, and I know we'll be able to count on him as well in 1988. We saw an opportunity to see also Brian Ginsberg and Charles Lakes and Tom Schlesinger and Kevin Davis, also 4 other members that should fit into that team.
Yeah, Kathy, now the focus is on the women here in Indianapolis this week. What can we expect?
Well, I've watched a couple workouts and the girls really look great. The difficult task is going to be the coaches, determining exactly which 6 will go on the floor. Christy Phillips looks very strong. Phoebe Mills probably will not compete. She's about 80%, but they don't want to risk this close on to World Championships. Other strong ones, Sabrina Marr looks great, and Stacy Gunthorpe, Kelly Garrison, so it's really going to be tough, but they should have no trouble in the team competition whatsoever. The competition will be amongst the United States.
Great. We look forward to that live competition next week. See you both a little bit later. Now, still ahead of us, 2 of the most heralded amateur athletes in the world. Greg Louganis is going to go for still another gold medal in the platform. That's ahead of us this afternoon. Remember, he's not lost a diving competition at the Pan Am Games. Well, it goes back to 1979. And then Carl Lewis. This afternoon, he will go not only for a gold medal in the long jump, but he's promised everyone that if the wind is right, he'll set sail after Bob Beeman's world record. So that action will be coming up. We'll go to Dick Stockton, track and field, right after these messages from your local station. Get a nap.
And you're looking live at the Indiana University Track Stadium, courtesy of the Goodyear Blimp. And we have a beautiful afternoon for this, the final day of track and field activities here in the Pan American Games. We expect a sellout crowd. They're filing in right now, and the weather is simply ideal. 86 degrees. What could be crucial as we move on this afternoon are the wind conditions. Right now, south out of 15 miles per hour, and that could affect Carl Lewis in his attempt in the long jump record attempt this afternoon. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dick Stockton, and as we said at the outset a week ago, this is by far the best Pan American team the United States has sent to these games. Certainly, they performed better than they did in Caracas. We're going to take a look now at the medal count, and we'll keep in mind that the United States has really reasserted itself in the sprints against the Caribbean challengers in a big way. And working with our expert analyst Craig Masbach, and yesterday, Craig, the United States almost had a perfect 6-for-6 afternoon in the races until the final event, the men's 110-meter hurdles, when it looked like the Americans, with Greg Foster leading the way, would finish 1-2.
Certainly with Foster, who's been ranked #1 in the world, and Cletus Clark, one of the best hurdlers in the world. We should have won that race easily, but the disaster struck somewhere around mid-race.
All right, let's take a look now at the 110-meter hurdles. And let's close up on Foster in lane 2 and Clark in lane 3. And both Americans started out in impressive fashion, particularly Foster. And then by the 5th hurdle, disaster struck.
Foster's the kind of guy who, when he gets ahead, no one ever catches up to him. But when Cletus Clark at the 5th hurdle fell to the track, Foster seemed to lose his concentration, and he too had problems. The hurdles are all about concentration, Dick. You look straight down that line of hurdles, and you don't think about what anyone else is doing. You want to have low clearances over the hurdles. You want to be fast in between. But Cletus Clark just smashed into the 5th hurdle, fell to the ground. Then Foster lost his concentration, and at the 7th hurdle, he stopped completely.
Tremendous disappointment for Foster, who certainly has not had much luck here in Indianapolis. At the World Indoor Championships, he also had a mishap and fell, so he'll be glad to get out of town, unlike Carl Lewis, who likes the runway in his event right here. Meanwhile, a totally different story in the women's 100-meter hurdles with Stephanie Hightower-Leftwich and LaVonna Martin, who looked so impressive in the early rounds. A very exciting race yesterday.
You know, Martin's only 20 years old. She's a newcomer to these kinds of races. And Leftwich Hightower, she's a great veteran at 29. She has the American record that Martin has been threatening all year.
Certainly a brighter finish for the Americans yesterday. And let's go back to the women's 100-meter hurdles. And we'll watch on your left will be LaVonna Martin in lane number 5, who shattered the Pan American record in the semifinal, and Hightower in lane number 3.
Martin's been working all year on getting a good start so that she can be the one to take command, and she did here. She was the one that said to the others, "You press and you come get me." But when the Cuban on the left of the screen did come up alongside, it was Martin who started to falter. But she's been concentrating as well on the last 4 hurdles. She got back into the race, came back on Hightower, who had taken command late in the race, and had a superior lean at the tape for the victory.
A tremendous finish, and LaVonna Martin, who shattered the Pan Am record in the semifinals, then shattered her own record in winning the final. So an impressive record performance yesterday. And speaking of records, we had a lot of them this week. We'll be back to that in just a moment. Major records during the week in these Pan American Games, and one of 3 defending champions. From the women's division, Judi Brown-King, and what a tremendous performance she gave as she established a new American record of 54.23 in winning the 400-meter hurdles this week. Sandra Farmer is next to her in the yellow jersey from Jamaica, but Judi Brown-King, with a tremendous performance, established a new American mark as she defended a Pan American title, and she was the defending silver medalist in the '84 Olympics, so she is still running extremely well. And now I'm with Mary Slaney, who of course is getting ready for her comeback in track and field. And I think without question this week, Mary, the outstanding moment had to be Jackie Joyner-Kersee tying the world record in the long jump established by Heike Drexler of East Germany.
Dick, I think without a question, as you say, it was. And for me, I can only describe Jackie's performance as great. Sitting in the stands and watching that night, it just simply gave me goosebumps.
Well, we all felt the goosebumps. And right now, let's go back to Thursday night. This was the scene. It was hot and muggy and not much of a breeze, and a fine sellout crowd on hand to see if Jackie Joyner-Kersee could break a record of any kind here. Now, Jennifer Innes of the United States had already broken the Pan American Games mark with her first jump. Now it was Jackie's turn.
This jump set the tone for a great competition. It was a Pan American record.
23 4 3/4 inches to break Innes's mark just moments ago, but it looked like Jackie Joyner-Kersee was certainly on the mark. And then came her second jump, Mary, and of course on this jump she fouls after getting off a fine jump. And what do you think that does to her head?
I don't think it hurt Jackie whatsoever, Dick. I think that the fact that her first jump was so good that the second jump, she just, as a competitor, just went straight into her thoughts and visualization of the third jump, the jump that was to come next.
And in the dusk of the Indiana University Track Stadium, Jackie Joyner-Kersee came back with a fine third jump, her best of the night so far.
This jump set a new American record, but this was not enough for Jackie.
Now her husband, Bob Kersee, was sensing the possibilities. A new American record of 23.9½ inches. So she had already set out what she wanted to do, but 24 feet was in sight. And Jackie prepared for her final jump.
Jackie, knowing that she has already put together the finest series of long jumps by a woman, had nothing to lose, so she was going for it all.
And the crowd knew that she got off a tremendous jump. And all that would remain would be the official distance. Would she exceed 24 feet, and would she approach the world record?
If the numbers come up, 7.45, it would equal the world record.
Some 15 agonizing minutes would go by. The tape measure was brought out, and that was good news.
The remeasuring and the anticipation, everybody in the stands knew that something was up and it was something good.
And there it was, equaling the world mark held by East Germany's Heike Drexler.
For those of us who were in the stadium that night, Jackie's performance was a real treat.
A stirring evening of activity, Mary, and now I'd have to say, what does this performance mean for her looking ahead?
Well, I think it can only mean one thing, and that is confidence. And Jackie will be going off to the Track and Field World Championships with more confidence than any other athlete could possibly hope for. And that, in turn, will breed the feeling that she will be the athlete to beat at the World Championships.
A memorable moment for Jackie Joyner-Kersee, who right now is with Irv Cross down on the infield. Irv?
Jackie, congratulations again in your world record tying effort in a long jump. Mary said that a jump like that would boost your confidence, has it?
Yes, it boosts my confidence because coming into this competition, I wanted to compete well and to not to get an injury going into the World Championship. So it did boost my confidence a little bit.
Well, you know, there's a lot of talk that, of course, you're a heptathlon world record holder, but you might want to specialize in an event one day or so. Is that true? You're thinking about specializing in the long jump, some other events?
I've been thinking about it, but that's later on in my future. After the 1988 Olympic Games, I might specialize in the long jump and maybe the hurdles.
Maybe the 400-meter hurdles, by the way, right? All right,
yes.
Congratulations, Jackie. Dick?
All right, Irv, thank you very much. Carl Lewis looking for that 30-foot barrier. What is that all about? We'll discuss it when we come back to Track and Field in just a moment. The competition will start shortly in the men's long jump, and Carl Lewis will be the focus of everyone in the sold-out stadium as he tries to better Bob Beeman's world long jump record. 19 years ago, Bob Beeman set the record in the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, 29 feet 2.5 inches, and Lewis likes the runway here. He hopes to do it. But what is going to be of paramount interest here, Craig Masbach, will be the wind conditions. That really is the key here.
World records are difficult to set in track and field. You need almost ideal conditions, and I believe certainly that Carl can set the record, but the wind was a problem all day yesterday. He told us the most important thing in setting the record would be a good, consistent wind. He'd prefer no wind at all, but if it was going to be a wind, it should be at his back and consistent. We had swirling winds yesterday.
And they bothered Carl. In fact, yesterday, let's go back to the qualification. Carl Lewis did not qualify in his first attempt, and then he did on on the second, although he claimed that the conditions were even worse this time around.
He got halfway down the runway, Dick, and the wind came right into his face. He was 8 to 10 inches short of the board, and it was all his athletic ability was needed to stretch out to 26 feet.
Now, there's another fine American long jumper here in Larry Myrick's, who could conceivably press Carl today.
Well, Larry's the last person to beat Carl Lewis. Carl has won 50 straight since then. Myrick's was in the 1976 Olympics when Lewis was still in high school. A great veteran who's having his best season ever.
Could you imagine trying to jump 30 feet? And you imagine what is 30 feet? Well, Irv Cross will tell us more as soon as we take a look at the final jump list. And Jaime Jefferson of Cuba is another possible threat in the competition here as you look at the field. And on the second page, Carl Lewis and Larry Myrick's represent the United States. But to get a better look at what 30 feet might be, right now let's go down to the field and Irv Cross. Irv?
You know, Dick, despite the problems that Carl Lewis had here jumping yesterday, he loves jumping in this stadium. You know, the runway is long and it's fast, and the sand in the pit is very soft. And in 1982 here, he recorded an unofficial jump of somewhere close to 30 feet, and he's been driven by that memory ever since. Carl Lewis is a man with a mission to jump farther than any man has ever leaped before and set a new world record in the long jump. But that task is a formidable one, to say the least, because Lewis is challenging the oldest record in all of track and field. The long jump record has stood for almost 19 years since Bob Beamon jumped 29 feet 2.5 inches in Mexico City. Lewis was only a child when Beamon set the record, but he began dreaming of the day when he might challenge that barrier.
I was about 10 or 11, really, really young, right when I started to understand, you know, what that performance was. It really looks long anywhere but out here. I mean, it still looks long out here, but it looks long anywhere. If you're just like on the yard or something, it looks, and like even a football field, 10 yards doesn't look very far, but it's a long ways.
Nobody knows how far better than Lewis. He has challenged Beamon's record more often than any other athlete, and once jumped close to the magic 30-foot barrier, only to have the jump called a foul. But really, how far is 30 feet? How far to fly? Well, imagine jumping the length of a stretched limousine and landing a full 6 feet beyond. Or measured vertically, leaping over a flagpole in a single bound. You probably don't think twice about crossing the street, but imagine crossing the street without ever having your feet touch the ground. But how far is 30 feet? Who can jump that far? Well, imagine Michael Jordan taking off from beyond the three-point line to stuff a basketball. Or have you ever seen a tennis player leap over the net to shake an opponent's hand and land almost near the service line? 30 feet. Carl Lewis, a man with a mission.
I'm a little bit more focused on jumping far this year than I have been, you know, really ever before. Not necessarily just the world record, but jumping as far as I can, because we feel that I can jump farther on, you know, beyond that point, and even beyond 29.6. So that's what we're focused in trying to do. And I think that, you know, I should give myself the opportunity to be first.
International rules state that you only have a foul when there's a mark made beyond the takeoff board. Now, in 1982, Carl Lewis didn't make that mark. Ironically, the same officials who worked that meet are here today, but the only foul they'll record will be a mark beyond the board. Dick?
All right, Irv, thank you very much. And while the focus will be on Carl Lewis's attempt today, we have at least another outstanding race, and maybe the best field in the men's 800-meter race. And, of course, two outstanding Americans in Johnny Gray, who has to be the American favorite, Stanley Redwine, Jose Luis Barbosa of Brazil, and then there's a fellow named William Waike of Venezuela, Craig.
Picture the scene 4 years ago, Dick. 28,000 screaming fans in the Venezuelan stadium in Caracas, and one man there that they were watching, William Waike. He was expected to be the Venezuelans' only medal winner in track and field, and he did everything he had to do. He was right where he had to be, right on the shoulder of the favored Brazilians, Jose Luis Barbosa.
This was the scene. He was in great position, and then disaster struck him.
Well, Gomares, the other Brazilian, tried to sneak by, and Waike went down to the track. Gomares swept on to the victory, but all the hopes of Venezuelan were back on the track, back at the head of the stretch. There was Waike lying on the track, thinking of perhaps 5 from then, and that's right here.
4 years can be a long time, and nobody may know that better than Mary Slaney. And Mary, we have to go back to the '84 Olympics and Zola Budd and the collision at the Coliseum. I know that always sticks in your mind. I'm sure that when you saw Waikiki go down, it brought back some sad memories for you.
Well, Dick, it did. And as you said, 4 years is a long time to wait. And for me, when I think of the Olympics, I think of this big skeleton in my closet. And for me, to get rid of that skeleton, I will have to have a successful 1988 Olympics in Seoul. And to compare Waiki's situation to mine, which is directly comparable, this will be the meet for him to get rid of his skeleton, and he will be out there to win.
Mary, to talk about your update, you've had 2 Achilles operations. Where are you in your planning for your comeback?
Well, after the second one, I'm at the tail end of a 3-month rehabilitation period, and at this point, everything's been going perfect, no setbacks, and in September, I anticipate starting my training for the 1988 Olympics.
All right, thank you, Mary, and thank you, Craig. And of course, we have coming up the long jump, and there it is, the world record. And they'll be measuring it in meters, and we'll translate it into feet and inches, and the drama coming up in just a few moments. Right now, let's go back to Brent Musburger at the CBS Broadcast Center. Brent?
All right, Dick, thank you. We look forward to seeing how Carl Lewis can do out there. And also, still ahead of us, Greg Louganis, whom just a few moments ago received a massage to sort of relax over there in poolside as he gets ready to go up onto that platform and attempt to win still another gold medal here in the Pan American competition. Also, we're going to bring you some match sprint racing. That's a fascinating sport that I think took on added luster after the Olympics out in Los Angeles, and our James Brown was out there with that coverage. We'll have that coming up. Now, in another of our continuing series of Pan American essays, we've called upon former Major League umpire Ron Luciano. The subject of his essay may not surprise you, although some of the research did surprise him.
Everybody comes to the Pan Am game for different reasons. Most people come to watch the athletes. Me, I come to watch the officials. I was an umpire for 12 years in the American League. What else would I come for? The best place for me to start in the Pan Am games, right here at the old ballpark.
I learned that these umpires are up against a language barrier. And when things get out of hand, the result can be a bilingual exchange.
Is it fun to throw them out in 2 languages? Throw them out in Spanish and English?
Te vas de aquí.
What is it?
Te vas.
Te vas.
Estás fuera de juego.
Oh, beautiful. I wish I could do that. It was getting hot at the ballpark, so I came inside to watch fencing. I thought baseball was tough when they carried bats. But these guys, they live dangerous. They carry swords.
Can you imagine if Earl Weaver was allowed to carry a sword? I never would have survived. In this sport, I'd prefer the desk job, where you just push a few buttons and you stay out of trouble. For a change of pace, I went out to the country for a little skeet shooting. The first thing I noticed were all the guns. And if these guys weren't shooting them, they were carrying them. But as far as the officials, boy, what a life. Earmuffs, so you can't hear any of the complaining. And the only work they did was they sounded an occasional horn.
I could get to enjoy this sport. I think.
I quickly spotted a problem over at the roller hockey. You see this goalie? You see all his padding? You see the mask? Now look at the other guy. He's got nothing but a red flag. Now, once in a while, he uses the flag. But for most of the game, he's ducking for dear life, hiding behind the goal, trying to keep all of his teeth. I'll tell you, watching these guys made me a nervous wreck.
You don't wear any protection out there.
No protection at all.
You been hurt?
Sure have.
What?
8 stitches in the head, broken front tooth, and a broken leg.
And you still don't wear a helmet?
Still don't wear a helmet.
Now, the last thing I expected to see at the judo were officials in coats and ties. Now, the manners were unbelievable. They actually came out and bowed. But you'd think with a strict dress code, the least they could do was wear shoes. For my money, I'd prefer the guy with the dirty shoes. A healthy appetite, and at least a few bad habits.
The one thing I learned, no matter what sport you're officiating, we all do it for the same reasons. Recognition, respect, admiration, love. Take me to the airport.
Say, aren't you Ron Luciano, the umpire?
Yeah, that's me.
Get out of my cab, man.
Well, pilot Aaron Jenkins up there in the Goodyear Blimp America with a splendid view of one of the finest velodromes in the United States, the Major Taylor Velodrome. You might wonder who in the world was Major Taylor. Well, it's kind of an interesting story. Back in the late 1800s around here, a young black youngster was found on a bicycle, and he could race it as fast as anyone in the area. And Major Taylor went on to become the first all-around black champion in bicycle racing. And I'm sure you've heard about Indiana's passion for basketball. I don't have to tell you that that's recognized far and wide. But you know, years before Bob Knight and then the movie Hoosiers, Americans flocked to see the film Breaking Away and learned about Indiana's other favorite sport, cycling. So it wasn't surprising that the velodrome was packed last night for the men's and women's match sprint finals, and our James Brown was there.
Welcome to the Major Taylor Velodrome, where a packed house, a crowd of over 6,000 is on hand to watch the finals of the men's and women's 1,000-meter match sprints here at the 10th Pan American Games. And hello, everyone, I'm James Brown. What you're about to watch is one of the most exciting competitions in cycling, the match sprints. And helping to make this gold medal race more special is the fact that the preliminaries have delivered 2 All-American finals, both with a distinct hometown flavor. And providing the expert analysis is Nelson Vales, the defending Pan American champion in this event, as well as a silver medalist in the 1984 Olympics. Nelson, on the men's side, Mark Gorski is from Indianapolis. He'll be racing a fast teammate in Ken Carpenter.
Well, I'd like to point out, JB, Mark Gorski is a veteran in international competition. Ken Carpenter's first year. He's the underdog. I expect a lot of surprises.
On the women's side of the action, Connie Paraskevin-Young is from Indianapolis, but she's got a tough task ahead of her, facing Renee Duprel of Seattle, Washington.
Connie Paraskevin-Young is a 3-time world champion, a former world record holder in the 200-meter. Renee Duprel, this is her second year in international competition, and she's going to be packed with a lot of energy. It's going to be very exciting.
Connie Paraskevin-Young, Renee Duprel.
Raced 3 times around the track. The first lap is ridden at least the walking pace, and each rider jockeying for their preferred position. The actual sprint starts in the final 300-meter, with the last 200 meters starting the timing tape.
Although Connie Paraskevin-Young is the favorite in this race, she's got to be concerned about Renee Duprel, who, as I mentioned before, turned in the second fastest time in qualifying trials on Friday.
Well, Renee cannot be taken lightly, and with the second fastest time, Connie knows she has to keep an eye on her. I don't believe this is Connie's preferred position. Being in first, have to look over her shoulder.
You got the bell. That signals the final lap. What might be taking place in their minds now?
Well, Renee Duprel, I'm sure, want to catch Connie by surprise because Connie is strong and is quick.
As we mentioned before, the sprint doesn't begin until the final 300 meters, with the final 200 meters being timed, and the pace is picking up right now.
Duprel dives underneath Connie Paraskevin-Young and hits the 200-meter time first. And
Renee Duprel pumping hard. Can she hold that lead?
Well, 100 meters to go here. Connie looks real strong over the top of Renee, but Renee is powering hard down the home stretch.
And Connie Paraskevin-Young comes away the winner in Heat 1 in the best 2 out of 3. It looked as if Connie Paraskevin-Young got, but that speed, that power stretch served her well.
This is Connie's hometown track. She knows this velodrome very well. She trains here every other day. She should know this like the back of her hand.
And much like any other athlete, of course, Connie would like to do well in front of her hometown fans, and I'm sure they gave her an extra burst of speed. Connie Paraskevin-Young and her husband Roger don't usually have much time to just relax together. For the world-class cyclist and her coach, it's usually all hard work.
Oh, wait.
Roger's been my coach since, let's see, about 1981. And, you know, it really works out well. Sure, sometimes it's difficult, you know, to like leave that at the track and come home. But, you know, we've managed to really, I think, get the best out of each other.
And the combination seems to have worked. Connie is a 3-time world champion and a heavy favorite in these Pan Am Games, the first ever to include women's track cycling as an event.
I feel, I really want to perform well here, and hopefully I'll be doing the same thing next year and representing the U.S. team again in another first for women's cycling in the
And Connie is well on her way to winning a gold medal if she can come through successfully in Heat 2. And in Heat 2, Renee Duprel has the pole position, so she's obligated to lead the first lap, and she's got the lead.
Pretty intense situation for Renee here because she's one race down, and she has the disadvantage of having to lead and have to keep her eye on Connie. And let's see what happens here within the last 300 meters.
And again, we saw a quick glimpse there of Roger Young, the husband of Connie Paraskevin-Young, as well as her coach.
I believe Renee here looks like she wants to do a track stand, if what you call it in cycling. She's going to come here to a complete stop and attempt to force her opponent to the front.
Renee Duprel, again, as you mentioned, with the track stand, trying to force Connie Paraskevin-Young to take the lead.
And it worked. Connie is obligated now to look over her shoulder. Renee is in control, or at least she feels that way. Watching Connie's ever see what happens.
Well, Nelson, you alluded to the mind games that are played in this racing event. Let's see if, in fact, the move that Renee Duprel forced works for her. She's off the track. Renee Duprel was forced off the track.
Now Renee has to come around with his last final 100 meters, and it doesn't look like it's enough stuff for her to win this race.
Duprel gave Paraskevin-Young the lead. Paraskevin-Young took advantage of it. Her speed served her well. She becomes the gold medal winner. First ever women's cycling event in these Pan Am Games. As we take a look again at lap 2, this was a critical point here where Renee Duprel tried to force Paraskevin-Young to the lead, and she obligated her and took the lead and capitalized on it.
Well, Connie just eventually took advantage of the lead that she had to take and made the sprint short and rode her own race.
Connie gets a victory hug from her husband, Roger, as the hometown girl comes away with the gold in women's match sprints. Up next, the men's match sprints finals featuring Mark Gorski against Ken Carpenter.
And we'll be going back to James for that. But Carl Lewis is getting ready for his first attempt at the long jump today. So let's go out live to the track, and here's Dick Stockton. Dick?
Thank you very much, Brent. And there is Carl Lewis. 26 years old, undefeated in 50 consecutive long jump competitions. The longest winning streak, by the way, in track and field now that Edwin Moses' streak has been broken, and he is awaiting his first jump. Now, there are 12 jumpers, and each will get 3 jumps, and then the top 8 will get 3 more, and that is the format for this Pan American final in the long jump. And, of course, Carl Lewis has had personal tragedy in the last year. In May, his father, Bill, passed away. His mother, Evelyn, is here in the stands, and so earlier, Irv Cross had talked to him. There's his sister, Carol, his mother, Evelyn. Irv asked him, what has his father's death meant to him?
It's changed me in a way. I mean, I sat there and watched the whole process go, and it kind of changed me in the sense that of life and death. That's one thing. I mean, I don't think I'm as afraid because he wasn't. I'm more brave in that sense. But then also, my father wanted me to continue to achieve. One thing I know, the last 2 years I just kind of took a break and didn't concentrate as much, and down towards the end I found out that he really wanted me to come back and be the best again. And kind of the last words or the last things that we talked about was regaining that #1 status and achieving everything I can and not stopping. I know, like, the day after his funeral, I was at a track meet just because he didn't want us to stop. He wanted us to go for it, and he wanted me to be #1 again and be the best. And that's the thing. He left with us, and he just told us the only way we can communicate it is by performing, because we can't feel him anymore, but he can watch us. So that's the thing I owe it to him, to try to be the best again.
Well, Carl's sister Carol is also a top long jumper, and his mother, the former Evelyn Lawler, as you saw, competed as a hurdler on the U.S. team in the first Pan American Games back in 1951. There is one jumper now, Mark Mason of Guyana, who is ahead of Carl Lewis. And here is Mason, and I guess this is part of the maturing process of Carl Lewis from what the feeling was in 1984, Craig.
Well, it goes back even further than that, Dick. He was a competitor in the Pan American Games back in 1979 as an 18-year-old and finished third, and fame and attention came very quickly to him. I think it was his family that helped shield him for a while, but by the time it got to 1984, the eyes of the world were on Carl Lewis. Amateur athletes don't have the kind of PR mechanism surrounding them that professional athletes have, and I think Carl Lewis was open for inspection to everyone, and in some ways, some people in the media certainly found him wanting in certain respects, but he has matured. The death of his father was an agonizing process for the whole family. He was a great supporter of Carl's and a great supporter of track and field, and as Carl says, he's still taking inspiration from him.
And speaking of that inspiration, Carl is getting ready now for his first jump, and he plans to take all 6 unless, of course, he establishes the world record early. And I guess it's kind of unusual to declare a goal to break a world record, isn't it, before you do it? I mean, most of these things come as a surprise as we take a look at the wind gauge, and that is somewhat of a headwind that Carl faces right now, but that can change.
Well, that was on the previous jump, about a 2-mile-an-hour wind in the face of the athlete. Now, Carl's wind seems to be, as we look at the wind indicator there, that's something that's put there to help the athletes plan when to begin their run-up. That seems to be going as a wind at his back, which of course he would favor in this condition. But he'll wait until the wind is just right. He'll think about what he wants to do on the runway, and then he'll take off.
It's a Mondo rubberized surface. Very fast runway. And when you consider that Willie Banks set the triple jump record a couple of years ago, and Jackie Joyner-Kersee set the long jump record or tied the world record, this is obviously a fast runway.
They call it a fast pit, but they're referring, of course, to the runway. Carl takes a longer run than the other athletes, so the status of the runway is more important to him. He runs about 173 feet. It's about 60 yards, and then launches himself into space. You know, he told us the other day that people don't appreciate you jump close to 30 feet and you land on the sand. It hurts a little bit.
Here he comes. He didn't like the pacing, and his first jump goes by the board, so to speak.
Speed was excellent on the runway, and you can see him focusing. He has check marks along the way to let him know where he is. He obviously got close in and realized, look how far behind the board he was. He figured it wasn't even worth it to take the jump with that sort of status. And again, the wind was playing tricks. 2.6 meters per second in his face. That's over 5 miles an hour in his face. Obviously not the conditions he wanted.
All right, we'll be back more with Carl Lewis. Right now, let's go back to Brent Musburger.
All right, Dick, and we certainly will return, and we're going to have more of our coverage from the velodrome, of our cycling, and we continue with our coverage of the Pan American Games from Indianapolis after these messages from your local stations.
Back here at the Major Taylor Velodrome and the medal ceremony for the women's events, you see it's Connie Paraskevin-Young accepting a gold medal in the first ever women's match sprints in the Pan American Games. In the men's match sprints, you take a look at the Pan Am record held by our own Nelson Bales at 10.6. But the favorite in the men's race this evening will be Mark Gorski. Mark Gorski is at home in Indianapolis in more ways than one. He has Hoosier roots in the historic district and all the comforts of his own backyard, kids included. Mary, his wife, owns an antique store in town, and for both of them, the Pan Am Games are a welcome relief from Mark's normal cycling schedule.
To be at home for a major competition is a really good feeling. I know the velodrome really well because I train here regularly, and I think I'll be inspired.
Mark established himself as America's premier sprinter when he captured the gold medal at the LA Olympics 3 years ago. It's a position he treasures and fully expects to defend.
I feel really good physically, and I'm confident, and you know, all I have to do is go out there and ride the way I should, and if I do that, I should win.
And Gorski comes into this evening's race as the favorite. He's the veteran racer with 12 years of experience, but Ken Carpenter, although only 3 years of experience, is a tough competitor.
Yeah, well, Ken, this is his first major competition here, and Mark Gorski has his preferred position, which is the back. He's going to keep his eye on Ken, and Ken has his hands full.
Now, these are teammates. These two guys obviously have to be very familiar with one another. Again, what do you think Ken's tactics might be?
Well, Ken is rolling very slow here. He may want to pull up and do a track stand to force Mark to the front.
As you take a look at Carpenter in the black helmet, trying to force Gorski to the front. Now, it's not working. As you take a look at the Gorski family, Alex and Mary there, they're into this race just as much. Some significant differences, a 6-year age difference, Gorski being the older, and Ken Carpenter.
JB, that doesn't really matter. It's a lot of brute speed out there. It's like I said, the chess game on wheels. The showdown is beginning right here with 200 meters to go.
It looks like Carpenter's got the lead. Can he hold it?
Well, Mark Gorski is making his way over the top of Ken. He's definitely going faster. He's on his shoulder, but he has farther to go.
And it's going to be a tight one to the finish line, and it appears as if Ken Carpenter pulls the upset over the hometown favorite Mark Gorski.
Well, JB, here, Mark Gorski was riding on his shoulder. It's what you call got caught on his hip. This track is strange. Mark should know better. It's a longer way around the track. You cannot take the high side because it's too far to the line.
And the fans in stunned silence as their local hero loses Heat 1 to a faster Ken Carpenter. And the pressure's got to be on Mark Gorski even more so now in Heat 2 because he's got to win this race.
Well, JB, the starting positions are reversed now. Mark has to look over his shoulder. You're right, Ken is confident. He has 1 gold star next to his name. He's more relaxed. He's in the back. And this is going to be very exciting.
Given what you know about Mark Gorski, his mental makeup, his ability to handle pressure, his experience, will this fluster him that Ken Carpenter did win Heat 1 in his hometown?
I believe for Mark, it's more of a come on. It's like he has the front now. Mark likes to ride from the front. And with Ken being in the back now, I'm sure a lot of things are going through Ken's mind, like maybe I have to get to the front to deter his speed, run his own race. Mark is going to ride his own race. They're playing a good game of chess right now.
Well, if you're Ken Carpenter in the dark helmet, as you look on, he's got to be feeling somewhat relaxed. He's got to feel comfortable. The pace is starting to pick up now.
Well, Ken Carpenter staying high on the track, and Mark is diving up below. You notice Ken Carpenter is forcing the pace, and he's high up on the track. Mark's going to have to come up and meet him in order to win this race.
Mark Gorski doing a lot of looking over his shoulder. Does that slow him down somewhat?
No, not at all, because it's like a natural look-back position, and then you normally pick up speed as you go along. It's like looking in your rearview mirror and stepping on the gas pedal.
Ken Carpenter gaining ground on Mark Gorski. Is going to be another tight one.
Oh, it looks close. Oh, it looks like Ken Carpenter wins this race.
And if you judge by the expression and the hand movements of Ken Carpenter, he in fact did win Heat 2. Tough competitors on the track. Again, the burst of speed by the bigger Carpenter serving him well in the last 50 meters as he blows by Mark Gorski. And you see his wife trying to urge him on, but she realizes, sitting at the finish line, that her husband did lose Heat 2. And Ken Carpenter, winner of the gold medal, is on the field with Nelson Vales.
Going into the Pan Am Games, the finals, okay, you were the underdog being at Mark's hometown. How'd you feel?
That was probably what won it for me. It's just I didn't feel any pressure at all coming into it. You know, I felt like, okay, I made it to the final, and, you know, this ride strong and ride fast, and, you know, whatever happens, happens.
So a relaxed Ken Carpenter comes away with the gold. Mark Gorski has the silver. Kurt Harnett of Canada wins the bronze. On the women's side, it was Connie Paraskevin-Young with the gold. For Nelson Vales, I'm James Brown saying so long from the Major Taylor Velodrome and the cycling venue.
All right, now speaking of gold, Greg Louganis is about ready to go after the platform gold. So let's go live to John Neighbor and Phil Boggs. John, you got it.
Thanks, Brent. We're here with a sold-out crowd that bought their tickets some 2 months ago in anticipation to see Greg Louganis dive off of the men's 10-meter platform. Hello, everybody. I'm John Neighbor. Alongside me, Olympic gold medal champion Phil Boggs. Greg Louganis is going for an historic feat. He's looking for what's called the triple-double. That's 2 gold medals in 3 consecutive Pan American Games. And from what you've seen so far, Phil, how does he look?
John, Greg looks great. He's at the top of his game. The beginning of this week on Monday, he dived incredibly in the springboard competition. He smashed the Pan American Games record and came within 1.5 points of his all-time highest score.
So certainly he's already got half of his 3rd double going for him. What do you expect the challenge to be for Greg in this meet?
Well, his own U.S. teammate, Matt Scoggin, defeated Greg at the Indoor National Championships in the United States. And if he's at the top of the game, he can push Greg to the top of his game.
We had a chance to speak with Matt Scoggin earlier, and we asked him what it's like to dive against a legend.
When I go against him in a competition, I know it's 10 dives, and anything can happen when the whistle blows. He might kick out a little bit late, and I might smoke 10 dives. And that's the way I face every competition when he's in it. I just know that anything can happen.
So we'll take a brief break for this message, but we'll be back with the live diving action from the men's 10-meter platform in just a moment.
Sports coverage of the 10th Pan American Games is
now on 10-meter. Matt Scoggin from the United States preparing to do what's listed as a forward 1.5 somersault in tuck position. He's America's second best hope behind Greg Louganis.
And John, in the first 4 rounds of competition, the divers do easy dives. They demonstrate their basic skills in diving. These are the simple ones. This is a forward 1.5 somersaults from 10 meter, 33 feet up.
Now, you know, Phil, you mentioned earlier that this is where he's really going to have to hit all of his dives if he wants to be within striking range of the great Louganis.
He has to stay close. He can't afford to miss anything. Good start. Great entry. And the last thing the judges see, and the most important, is the entry.
So the judges give him 7.5 and 8s for a total on the dive 35.5 on the first round.
Remember, in diving, anything better than a 7 means a good dive. Watching the takeoff. Good jump. He's not as pretty or as smooth as Greg, but still a very high jump. And then the entry, the most important thing, the last thing the judges see. Straight in and no splash.
Our next diver in the rotation is Jorge Mondragon from Mexico. He's going to be doing a forward flying 1.5 somersault in pike, and that flying, it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Well, it makes it a little bit more difficult, a little more interesting. It means the first half of rotation looks like a front dive, like a swan dive. He starts out in a swan dive and then bends over to finish the dive.
Mondragon is 24 years old. He lives and trains in Mexico City. He's studying hotel management.
And he's a veteran of international competition. He's an Olympic finalist, and he is also a very good diver.
Forward flying, 1.5 somersault pike position, 1.8 degree of difficulty.
Very good dive for him. Very good entry. You talked about that degree of difficulty, John, at 1.8. The first 4 rounds, at the end of 4 rounds, all the divers are even in degree of difficulty. Then they go into whatever they can do, the most difficult somersaulting and twisting dives. But in the beginning, some are a little bit harder, some are a little bit easier. But after 4, they're even on that part.
So the judges score 7.5, a couple of 8s. The high and the low will be thrown out.
Watch on the takeoff. The first half of rotation is in a straight or layout position. Looks like a swan dive to start with. And then he bends over and finishes 1.5 rotations. Very straight on the entry. A little bit of flat feet at the end. Judges take off a fraction for that.
So he goes into the waiting room to mentally prepare for his next round. 4th diver in the rotation, Jeff Hurst, our neighbor from the north in Canada. He's doing an inward 1.5 somersault. Pike position.
One of the 6 directions you can go off a tower, and that was a good dive also. We expect in the men's senior international competition in the beginning rounds to see nothing but good dives. We're just looking for those great ones, and that's what we build up to watching Greg Louganis at the end of the round.
How do the judges tell the difference between a good and a great dive? You see the scores on
all of the elements of diving. Good scores here. All of the elements, the approach, the takeoff, the explosive strength, dive in the air, and here you see the dive in the air. This part, 1.5 rotations, very easy, straight in on the entry, and the ideal finish is absolutely no splash. He has a little, but still very straight in. Good dive.
So while he towels dry, he watches his Canadian teammate forward 1.5 somersault for David Bedard.
Again, another great entry. Not as high in the jump as you'll see some of the divers have, but a great finish. Consequently, in all, a good dive. Again, you'll see scores better than 7, 7.5.
David trains in Hudson Heights, Quebec. He's coached by Don Webb, 5 feet 7 inches high. So that's the 5th diver in rotation. Louganis is the 7th and final diver in rotation, so he's getting ready for his turn to do his dive. But first of all, we've got somebody else on the platform.
And his coach has told me just moments before the competition started, he said Greg is mentally ready as well as physically. But when he's mentally ready, look for the record.
Forward 1.5 somersaults in pike position will be the dive for Jesus Mena from Mexico. Mexico has turned out a couple of Pan Am Games champions.
And they've had some great divers over the year. What they're waiting for here is the scoreboard and the judges to be all set to tally the total for the next dive. It's all computerized.
The judge is looking the other way when the diver dives. Nullifies his score just a bit.
Again, simple dives in the beginning. You saw the front direction before you saw an inward direction. There's 6 possible ways you can go off the platform. And when we get to the optional rounds, rounds 5 through 10, those 6 rounds, they'll demonstrate all 6 directions you can go off a platform.
So now the scores come in on the official tally board, 7.5s, 8s, and 8.5. So 36 plus on that dive for Jesus. And now the man everyone's been waiting to see, Greg Louganis. Forward flying 1.5 somersault, pike position.
Greg Louganis, 113 feet, a forward flying 1.5 somersault, 1.8.
There you see some of the difference between Greg and the other divers. Poetry in motion, explosive strength, and yet so graceful, and right straight in on the entry.
The crowd showing their appreciation. They're getting their money's worth today out of the diving tickets here at the Indiana University Natatorium. Judges scores 8.5s, 2 9s from the judges, 46 points on the dive, and that put him in comfortable first position.
Watch the takeoff. This is the legend at work. Just powerful off the platform. So artistic and graceful. The entry tells it all. Perfectly straight in with knife-like toes.
And so Louganis could be our leader after the first round of diving. Let's go to the CBS Broadcast Center and Brent Musburger.
All right, John. Louganis relaxing with a little music after that splendid start. Another athlete about to attempt his 2nd qualifying jump is Carl Lewis. He ran through on his first effort. We're going to be going back over there as soon as Carl gets ready. Now, we're just about in the heart of the day, and still to come for us, you're going to see Kelsey Banks, one of our very talented boxers. He's out of Chicago, maybe our best amateur. Also, you're going to see our basketball team. Now, I don't think this game is going to be very good. The United States could win this by up to 40, 45 points, but it is a team worth looking at and comparing with that group that Bob Knight coached out in Los Angeles that won the gold medal. Then women's volleyball. The United States women lost yesterday to Cuba. You'll see them in action a little bit later against Peru. Now, we do have one lingering controversy that I want to touch upon here with Mark Miles, who is the president of the organizing committee here in Indianapolis. And, Mark, you've done a splendid job with this whole city, the venues and everything. We've had this continuing controversy of the harassment of the Cuban athletes. What steps have you taken to ensure that the competition can go on without the athletes being bothered the rest of the way?
We've worked closely with our law enforcement people here, including the chief of police, who's sort of at the helm. And he's agreed to beef up particularly the uniform security forces at competitions where their view is it might be required.
Mark, speaking of that, we want to show everybody a picture of track and field to give you an idea, because there have been reports that the next place that this group may attempt to demonstrate is over at the track and field. And we can see there you have added to the security force. Is that right today?
The uniforms are more prevalent, but I think it's a mistake to look at the politics as in any way dampening the enthusiasm of the athletes or the crowds. Yesterday we had 120,000 people, which was our record day. We exceeded 500,000 total attendance at the halfway mark, and we couldn't be happier with the feel and the enthusiasm here.
Mark, what about the dealings with the Cubans? Putting the controversy aside, what has it been like? Have there been any problems with them? Have they demanded anything?
No, they haven't. They've been patient and cooperative. We are in communication with them on a regular daily basis, and so far I think their concentration's on sports, and they've not let the extracurricular activities distract them.
All right, Mark, thank you. And again, the organizing committee's done a spectacular job here in Indianapolis.
Thanks, Brent.
Let's go back out quickly now to Dick Stockton, track and field for Carl Lewis. Dick?
All right, Brent, thank you very much. And as you look at the current standings and don't find Carl Lewis's name, while we're looking for the records, there's always the competition itself, and we have one shaping up here. The other American, as we told you, is Larry Myrick's, the last man to beat Lewis back in 1981, and this was his first jump to take the lead, Craig Masbach.
He's the one that's challenged Lewis most consistently over the years, and he had a very, very good jump. He was jumping into a wind just as strong as Lewis was jumping into, but he pulled it off.
Now, Jaime Jefferson, who is the defending Pan American leader and has gone over 27 feet, had his first jump, and he actually took the lead of 26.7 1/4, and that was wind aided. And Jefferson took the lead on his second jump of 26.9, and now Carl Lewis is up, and right now Lewis is way down there.
I think this in some ways will help us out this afternoon. The previous jump to Carl's, first of all, we now notice had the wind at the back, so Lewis can now hope that the wind will be at his back for once on one of his jumps. Also, he's a great competitor. Every time he's been challenged in a competition, he's responded. Most recently at the national championships, where Myrick took the lead in the 4th round, Lewis came right back with the winning jump.
He told us the other day, he says, I'll jump my best in the first 2 jumps, and when I jump far early in the high 28s, everyone else presses. That hasn't been the case so far.
He's usually used to getting off a good jump. He's normally one of the most consistent jumpers, the guy who comes right out, hits his steps perfectly on the first jump, soars very far, and then puts the pressure on the other guys. Now the pressure's on him. We have a competition now, not necessarily a record attempt.
So Lewis fighting for the gold. And he knew it. An illegal jump into 2.1 wind aided, though. I think that's a wind aided jump.
2.1 meters per second won't be a legal jump. It won't count for record purposes. That's just over the allowable limit, about 4.7 miles per hour. But you could see as soon as he hit the pit, he knew he had a great jump. That's the sign of a great athlete. Tom Tellez, his coach, says Carl has a better feel than any athlete he's ever worked with.
And of course, if it is wind aided, it would not go in the books as a world record if it is that. But of course, you can win the competition with a wind aided jump. And this was beautiful.
Well, it is perfection when you look at Lewis on the runway. Everything in control, the motion forward. He's a great sprinter who right there turns into a great long jumper. The double hitch kick form that keeps his body in the right position, and then he throws his arms back and thrusts himself forward out of the pit. Here he is again. He's a sprinter in this stage. He wants to generate 27 mile per hour speed on the runway. When he gets close, he shortens his step and then reaches for the sky. He looks back. You can see his head slightly back. His legs fall forward. He throws his arms back, and then he goes out of the pit.
8.75 meters, and that's 28.8 inches. 28.8 inches for Carl Lewis. It certainly gives him the lead right now on a fine jump, although it is wind aided. It is the 8th longest jump in history. So as we take a look at the standings during the second, Carl Lewis has taken the lead, and right now let's go to Brent Musburger at the CBS broadcast control. Brent.
All right, great moment there. And speaking of moments, let's go back to the diving John Neighbor and see how Greg Louganis is doing. John?
You're watching Greg Louganis preparing for his 2nd round dive. He's getting ready. He's in second position after the 1st round. But as we say, Phil Boggs, in the early rounds, they're all doing relatively simple dives. Right now is the diver before him, Jesus Mena, and he's doing an inward 1.5 somersault in pike position. This is the 6th diver in the rotation.
Great entry. That's the entry they're looking for. Not the jump off the platform that Louganis has, not the ease with which he accomplishes his dives, but a great entry, and consequently will be very good scores.
Of course, nines is a good score for this diver, for any diver for that matter. 8.5s and an 8. 89 points is the score at the end of the 2nd round. Now all eyes turn to the 10-meter platform, where Louganis is the final diver in the rotation. This is the conclusion of the 2nd round of men's 10-meter platform diving. Greg will be attempting a back dive in pike position, degree of difficulty 1.8.
Ready again, 201 feet, back high, front middle.
Still early in the competition, but what you're watching is Louganis attempting to go for a triple-double. 3 consecutive 2 gold medal performances. 9.5 down the board. The high and the low will be tossed out. 95 is his total score. That does move him into the lead at this point.
Watch on the takeoff. He's several feet over the platform. Powerful jump. And touch right at the top. And just drop straight in the pool. A little less splash on the entry, and there would have been 10s.
So that concludes the second round of competition with Louganis, our leader. We'll be back with more competition from the men's 10-meter platform when we return after this. Welcome back to 10-meter platform diving. John Neighbor with Phil Boggs alongside. You see our leaders after 2 rounds of diving. The top American, Louganis, has a comfortable 6-point lead. The second American, Matt Scoggin, is ready for his 3rd round dive, a reverse dive in layout or straight position. He's in 5th place right now.
This is the reverse direction where he'll dive back towards the platform. That's 3 in a row for Matt, too. Excellent dive. You can see his position in the air is not as graceful as Louganis, but deadly accurate.
Matt Scoggin should make some progress up the leaderboard on the basis of that dive. We are still in the what are called required dives, the easier dives. 7.5, 8.5, a couple of 8s. So Matt Scoggin looks pretty good.
Watch the jump off the platform. Great jump. He's very aggressive. Goes after the takeoff. And the position is just not as elegant, as graceful as Greg. Arms are a little bit out of position coming toward the entry, but perfectly straight in. Great finish.
So there's still more diving to come, and we'll be back with that a little later. But first, let's go to Brent Musburger in the CBS Broadcast Center.
All right, John, we, of course, are waiting Carl Lewis's 3rd attempt here. And meanwhile, the United States basketball team is about to begin its game against Uruguay. And that is from Market Square Arena, where the Indiana Pacers of the NBA play their home games. To get a report, let's go to Vern Lundquist and Billy Packer. Vern?
Is that what we're doing? That was it? No. No, I'm saying...
This is Market Square Arena. It holds 16,000 plus for basketball. Hasn't had a full house so far in the competition, but we do expect a good crowd this afternoon. As quarterfinal play begins, the United States will take on the Uruguayan team. The U.S. has not been tested in the first 4 rounds. They defeated Panama by 28, Argentina by 27, and perhaps of the 12 men on this United States team, the most impressive thus far has been the soon-to-be senior at the University of Kansas, Danny Manning. Even more so than his more celebrated teammate, David Robinson. It's been Manning who has been exemplary in all fields of play. Manning leads the team in scoring with 15 points. Rex Chapman follows with 14. David Robinson, 13. Purvis Ellison, 11. And Ricky Berry, 8. Hi once again, everybody. Vern Lundquist along with Billy Packer. Bill, they've not been tested so far. Do you expect anything different against Uruguay?
No, I really don't, Vern. Uruguay doesn't have the players to play against the United States. As a matter of fact, the United States has a bracket which is relatively weak because you have Puerto Rico, Brazil, and Canada in the other bracket, which are the 3 toughest teams they'd have to play.
Now, in the medal round, which begins today, the U.S. will play 2 of those 3 teams. Is there anybody there that can test them?
Well, I like Canada's experience. They've all been here before. I like Puerto Rico's great athletes, and I like Brazil as the best all-around team. If I had to take somebody that they'd give them the toughest test, it'd probably be Brazil.
Last night, Canada knocked off Brazil, a bit of a surprise, but that's forthcoming. Next up for the U.S. is Uruguay. Right now, let's go back to Brent Musburger in our CBS Broadcast Center.
All right, Vern, thank you, and we will continue tracking Greg Louganis and Carl Lewis here on CBS in just a moment.
Diving, you see the leaders after the second round of diving. Louganis followed by Jesus Mena, and in fact, he is getting ready to dive his 3rd round. He's doing a reverse dive pike.
It's the same dive Greg Louganis will do, just following him. over rotation. Watch the difference when you see this. You remember this dive and you watch Louganis's. Difference in jump, difference in position, difference in dive in the air, what it looks like, and difference in the entry.
But why did he go over?
He jumped a little bit away from the tower and took his feet and pulled them around with him and just over-rotated.
So the judges' scores give him 37 points on that dive. Now let's compare it with the greatest diver in history, Greg Louganis. Exact same dive.
That's 3 in a row. That was great. You could see he jumped higher, looked effortless, touched straight up, and right straight in on the entry.
Now, it's easy to say that Louganis was better than Mena before him, but how do you put numbers to the dive? How do you say that's a 9 instead of an 8.5?
Well, there you see the 9s and a 9.5. The way you do that is you compare on the jumps, you compare on the position in the air. Watch at the beginning. First thing you're going to look at is the jump. Who's higher? Greg is higher, and he's in a better position. And a better touch. And watch on the lineup, the position in the air. It's like an arrow right here, perfectly lined up. And right straight in. A little bit of splash on the entry, so we got 9s, not 10s.
So that concludes our third round of diving competition. Louganis remains our leader at this point. Seems like a lot of the divers like to put those earphones on and somewhat withdraw from the competition after they're through.
Well, they try and divorce themselves both from the crowd and the other divers so they can concentrate on their own dive.
Kenneth Vincents from Puerto Rico.
And that's still one of the easy dives. That was 1 1/2 somersaults with 1 twist. Later on, you'll see the divers do 3.5 twists in rotation.
So the going is just getting rough now. Matt Scoggin is the next diver up on the platform for the United States. Scoggin will be doing a backward 1.5. But after 3 rounds, Matt Scoggin has now moved into medal contention. He's popped up to 3rd place. Mena dropped out of the top 3. Jeff Hurst from Canada, who was our leader after the first round, is now in 2nd place. Backward 1.5 somersault with a half twist.
Matt Scoggin, 52.31 Okay, 1 1/2 somersault, 1 half twist, 3.2.1.
This is the last round of the easy dives. It's the 4th round of competition, and this is still an easy dive. Great jump off the platform, great entry. Those count a lot. The part the judges will take off for is what it looked like in the air. A little bit sloppy, a little bit flat feet, not crisp, defined positions.
It's hard to quantify that in terms of numbers, but you can certainly, in comparison with the likes of Louganis, see the difference. 7.5, 8s from the judges. 180 is his total score after this round.
Again, we're being picky, and we're looking at the best divers in the world. Greg, of course, is the #1 diver in the world, but the United States is also the #1 team in the world. You see just a simple 1/2 twist and 1 1/2 somersault starting backwards. Right here on the entry position, straight in, very little splash. Great.
And so we'll be back with more diving from the natatorium after this message and a word from your local station. We're back at the natatorium. The scoring after 3 rounds of diving. Louganis is the top American, 146. Matt Scoggin is in the bronze position, and the Canadian Jeff Hurst is standing in between. Getting ready for his teammate Dave Bedard from Canada to do his 4th round dive. Jeff Hurst has just now entered the water, getting the scores from the judges. Now Dave Bedard will begin getting ready now to do a backward 1.5 somersault with 1 half twist.
David Bedard, 52.31 feet, a back 1 1/2 somersault, 1 half twist, 3.2.1.
Another good dive, John. You know, for 4 rounds in a row, we've seen just one good dive after another. These are all very good divers, competitive at any level.
Consistency is the key. Dave Bedard completing now his 4th round of diving. Scores from the judges: 7.5, 7s, 7.5, and 8s.
Remember, anything better than a 7 in diving is a good score.
Here's our leader, Greg Louganis. Everyone expects the world out of him, and we're seeing him in top form here. But early in 1987, it's been a tough year for Greg.
Well, for the first time in 10 years, he went winless at a U.S. National Championship, John. He questions himself and his ability. Greg had to dig deep within himself, plus seek help from other people. He turned to his coach, Ron O'Brien.
Well, let's see Greg as he explains what it's like to be everyone's target, and how he handles the occasional losses, in his own words.
You're only a champion for the time that you win it. And you can come back to the pool 5 minutes, 5 days later, and the results will change. So you can never be comfortable in that #1 spot. You know, I have doubts like everyone else. And I question God, you know, am I getting too old? Am I trying to shoot for something that is unobtainable? And I went to Ron O'Brien and I said, God, you know, I don't believe in myself. I've lost that faith in myself. And I was really having major, major doubts. And he said, well, if you don't believe in yourself, believe in me, and we'll get through this together. And then at that point, I felt like I wasn't alone. And with somebody else there, I felt like I could conquer the world. I could do anything. And as my dive is being announced, I'll tell myself, no matter what happens, my mother's still going to love me. I'll approach the end of the platform. I'll get set, try and clear my mind of anything. Relax and count to myself. 1, 2, 3, go.
Greg Louganis, the count is about ready to begin. He's our leader after 3 dives. He's getting ready for an inward 1.5 somersault. And Ron O'Brien, head coach for the U.S. team in the Mission Bay Aquatic Center down in Florida, is also watching.
That was great. Best dive of the contest thus far. Ron O'Brien, his coach, told me before the competition began again, he said, Greg is mentally and physically ready for this event. That was a great dive. It could be a 10 here, John.
Could he also be on the way to a new world record in platform points?
Well, we have to wait and see how the contest develops. That's the end of the easy rounds. We get into the more difficult somersaulting and twisting dives. Then we'll know how really prepared he is.
It's a difficult task indeed to live up to the reputation of being Greg Louganis. But right now he gets 9s, 9.5 from the judges. 200 points after the 4 easy rounds, and still the 4 high-scoring dives still to remain. We'll have more of diving as we come back later, but first let's go to Dick Stockton and track and field.
Carl Lewis with a wind-aided jump of 28 feet 8.5 inches, the 8th longest jump ever, has given him the lead in the current standings in the men's long jump. Jaime Jefferson of Cuba is 2nd, and the other American, Larry Myricks, is 3rd. Now, Myricks had the lead after the first jump, but then fouled on his 2nd jump and fell down, Craig.
Well, Myricks was jumping after Lewis's jump. He had a very strong wind at his back, and he just went over the line. Had a good jump, but he fouled by just about an inch.
And then Jaime Jefferson from Cuba, who is the defending champion, got off this terrific jump. It was legal, and it was good enough for a new Pan American Games record.
And like Lewis, he has tremendous speed. He used it to great advantage for that particular jump.
So Lewis has the lead, and there is 1 jumper ahead of him, and now Lewis, taking his jacket off, is getting set for his 3rd jump. Keep in mind, we started with 12 jumpers, and each one gets 3, and after the 3, the top 8 move to the final, so to speak, and get 3 more jumps. And Lewis, who had a wind-aided 28.5 in his 2nd attempt after he aborted his first one and was marked out at 22 feet plus. This is the media coverage here, and it is larger than yesterday when we had a considerable group of photographers here. And there are the cameras that are just lined up on the pit at the end there, anticipating once again what Carl Lewis is trying to achieve, and that is beat Bob Beeman's record, world record, 19 years of 29 2.5 inches.
Well, we started to talk earlier that it's very hard to predict records in track and field. 165 countries are active participants in the sport, and many of them, as we've seen in the Pan American Games, many of the small countries even have world record potential athletes. But Lewis is the kind of guy who likes to set himself up for defeat, for failure. He said he's going for the record. We're here to cover it.
Told us the other day he's stronger and, amazingly enough, even taller than he was in '84. He said he had grown and gained 5 pounds in the process. We will also see Carl Lewis anchoring the 4x100 men's relay, which is going to be coming up in a little while. So Lewis, concentrating on the long jump, knows he also has the relay to run shortly.
I'm sure he's trying to block thoughts of running that anchor leg on the relay out of his mind now. He wants to take this jump, then he'll go hand off some batons with his teammates to warm up for that relay, run the relay, and then take his next jump.
It's amazing that Lewis, one of the most celebrated track stars ever with the 4 gold medals in the '84 Olympics, owns no individual world records. So this obviously would mean a lot to him. A fine jump. And it is a fair jump, and it is a legal jump. So all of the conditions are there. The question is, what will it measure out to?
He took off way behind the takeoff board. The guy almost a foot behind. I'd have to think that if he'd taken off right on the board, it would have threatened the record there. But again, long jumping is all about speed on the runway being converted into horizontal, not vertical distance. You don't want to go way high up in the air. You want to use that speed, and then as you take off, there he's on the board, but just on it. You want to use your horizontal speed to stretch out as he does there, but not really to a world record type distance.
Most of his jumps yesterday and today have been several inches behind the board.
Well, that's the wind that plays havoc with this. He sets up his jump for a perfect wind, no wind at all. Then as the conditions have changed, he's tried to adjust. You can see he shortened his last step there and then reached out for 8 meters 53, which as his mother looked on here, she obviously enjoyed the jump.
It appears that it is about 28 feet. And on the scoreboard, that would measure out to 8.53 meters if it is indeed a 28-foot jump. Keep in mind that until yesterday, Carl Lewis had never jumped less than 28 feet here in Indianapolis. Larry Myricks, who defeated him indoors, of course, the last man to win and the current indoor champion also in this competition, Jaime Jefferson of Cuba. Lewis in first place. And they take their time here.
Well, these are electronic measuring devices. In fact, ironically enough, they're East German measuring devices. When they measured Jackie Joyner's world record leap the other evening, the leap that tied the East German Heike Drexler's record, it was done with an East German device and East German technicians.
And we had about a 15-minute wait when Jackie Joyner-Kersee matched the world record in the long jump, and so we have a wait here. And so we want to let you know that the United States and Uruguay battling it out in men's basketball in Market Square Arena. And just to tell you that it was a 28-foot leap for Carl Lewis, and it is a new Pan American record, breaking Jaime Jefferson's jump just before. So Lewis has taken the lead. He has had the lead. He has a new Pan American record, and a lot more coming up, including basketball, when we return to the Pan American Games.
Before we check in on the U.S. basketball team, Greg Louganis about ready to dive again, so let's send you back to Phil Boggs and John Neighbor. John?
Thanks, Brent. Actually, the action here is getting hot and furious. Louganis as we begin the difficult rounds of diving. The score you see on your board after the 4 easy rounds. Louganis on top. Matt Scoggin moved up to the second place position after the first 4 rounds. Louganis, the man to beat, is back on top. He's on the 10th meter platform getting ready for his 5th dive, the first of the difficult dives in the competition.
This is an arm stand, cut through, reverse 1 1/2 somersaults. What that means is you're 33 feet up on top of the 10 meter and you stand on your hands and then fall forward and somersault back towards the platform. That other gentleman up on the platform is up there to ensure that he does a proper handstand. If not, then they automatically take off points away from the score.
What makes Louganis so difficult is his degree of difficulties. 2.6 are hard to beat. He can get 8s and still outscore dives of 10s in lower degrees, and Louganis is known to hit a few 10s himself.
Control in the handstand. Made the rotation very easily, right straight in, a little bit of splash. That'll prevent it from being 9.5s and 10s, but otherwise a great dive.
So what's that, about an 8.5, if you were judging that?
Well, that's his coach, Ron O'Brien, looking to the scoreboard. He's coaching him right now. You can see the hand positions. He's telling him what he is.
So the judges do give 8, 7, 7.5s. The high and the low are thrown out. The middle 5 are multiplied by 60% to get the average of the middle 3. That's multiplied by the degree of difficulty.
Great takeoff. Perfect control in the handstand. Right here, it looks great. Little collapse in the back position, a lot of splash.
So that concludes the 5th round of diving for Louganis. But earlier in this round, Matt Scoggin, who was in second coming in, was a little bit lackluster in his arm stand dive.
Did the exact same dive, but watch the difference in the entry. He just lets go way too soon, doesn't complete the rotation. He's halfway on his back, 4.5s and 5s.
So with the splash, we keep that in mind. We have more diving still to come. But before that, let's go over to Vern Lundquist at the basketball venue.
This is Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. Quarterfinal action in men's basketball. The United States against Uruguay. Rex Chapman of the U.S. has just hit a 3-point play. Basket plus the foul shot to give the United States a 13-7 lead with exactly 16 minutes remaining in the first half of play. David Robinson got the opening tip and stuffed it to propel the United States to a quick 6-0 lead. Uruguay finally scored to make it 6-2, and they have fought back. It's now a 13-7 game. And on the bench, Jeff Lebo. David Robinson has just gone out of the game, having scored already 6 points. Vern Lundquist along with Billy Packer. And Bill, as we said some half an hour or so ago, you really don't expect too much out of this Uruguay team today.
No, I'm very surprised that their leading scorer, Nunez, has not started in this ball game, but they've come off trying to get the game into a half-court game, not allowing the United States to get their fast break going. So far, they've been fairly effective, particularly on the inside with Perry and Medrick.
This is Rex.
Here is what the United States wants to do, is just break and use their great quickness and size to take it all the way.
Whistle underneath the basket as Dean Garrett tried to get the rebound and could not do so. There's Purvis Ellison. Ellison and Garrett, the first 2 subs for Coach Denny Crum of the United States team. So let's set the quintet for you now that's on the floor. Ellison is joined by Dean Garrett, Pooh Richardson of UCLA, Rex Chapman out of Kentucky, and Ricky Berry from San Jose State. Danny Manning went to the bench with 2 quick fouls in the opening 3 minutes of the game. And David Robinson is also resting right now.
Well, one of the things that we're seeing out here, most of the teams try to play against the United States playing a zone. And when Robinson's in the game, of course, everybody packs in on David Robinson. They've heard so much of his reputation. One of the things I think we're seeing, Vern, the United States, a very unselfish team, and a lot of guys pass up shots. And there's a case of Pooh Richardson taking one. The United States very patient in their half-court offense. And, of course, then when they get on defense, they like to press full court and press half-court and get that fast break running, which they've done very effectively in the early rounds.
You can see the edge that the Americans already have established on the boards. U.S. has not been pressed in any of the first 4 games, winning by an average of more than 30 points.
Uruguay, as everybody else does, try to run their half-court offense. Purvis Ellison getting the slap. Now, we've got an official out there that a touch foul is on any block, he calls that touch foul, so it's very difficult to block shots, although the United States has really done a great job with Purvis Ellison, Dean Garrett, David Robinson, all blocking numerous shots in every game they've played so far.
That is Javier Espindola, the Uruguayan coach, and at the line, Adolfo Medrick.
He's probably the best dressed coach in the Pan Am Games, because every day's out with a new outfit. And normally, really
only if you're into sweatsuits.
Yeah, he's got the sweatsuit collection. He must be going over the village every day. But he gets a little bit verbal. He's kind of quiet here today so far. I think he realizes he's up against superior forces.
Richardson after the feed from Chapman. And that's 2 more for Pooh Richardson, gives him a total of 6.
Pooh leading the club so far in assists in the course of the Pan Am Games. They're doing a good job in the backcourt.
Set the Uruguayan squad for you in the backcourt. They've got Oscar Moglia, number 12, and Oscar Perdomo, who has the ball right now, number 9. That's Moglia. And Adolfo Medrick, number 4.
Medrick, a good scorer on the inside for Uruguay in the early going.
Gustavo Shigelski, number 8.
Well, we don't know what the call is here. The official says that it was a good block. I thought it was a goaltend.
Sure looked like it. Errant feed behind the back.
Shigelski's making that pass with no space whatsoever available for the man to catch it.
The one thing the United States brings is depth, and they're sending 3 more subs in. Smart, Lebo, and Fenestembo. Back in a moment.
So let's return you to track and field and Dick Stockton. Dick?
All right, Brent, thank you very much. I'm with Craig Masback and Carl Lewis attempting his 4th jump. He is in first place right now, and prior to that had the 8th longest jump ever, but it was wind-aided. We have a medal ceremony going on right now. A national anthem. In the pole vault, but that was not Mike Tully standing in there, was he?
Tully probably headed off to Europe for some of the big meets over there. They had to stand in the ceremony.
All right. Well, sometimes stand-ins come in and they end up playing Broadway for years and years. Anyway, here's Carl Lewis into a headwind right now, but that could change. And don't forget, Lewis, right after this jump, will get set to anchor the men's 4x100 relay.
Well, he's done this before in the World Championships in 1983. He actually had to run from the long jump, anchor the team to a world record in the 4x1, and then return to win the long jump. So it's not an uncommon situation for him.
All right, Lewis with his 4th jump. He is in first place. Jefferson of Cuba is 2nd, and Myricks of the United States is in 3rd.
Not an ideal condition for Carl's concentration, but he seems to have it together now.
Good takeoff and a good leap, and he knows it. Let's see how close he is or whether he surpassed the 28.5 wind-aided. This was a fair jump and a legal jump as well, so this is not a wind-aided jump. So this is going to be one of the top jumps as they mark it from the farthest most point back that Carl Lewis landed on his 4th attempt here. He is far out in front here.
Here you see him from head on, and Carl does what he always says he wants to do. He wants to be a world-class sprinter. As he gets down towards the takeoff board, he wants to start thinking about being someone who controls himself in the air like a sprinter. Shortened his step there and then reached out very well. You can see him come forward right out of the jump.
Lewis's longest jump ever is 28.10 inches. He did it here in Indianapolis once and once indoors in New York. And the numbers would show 8.79 on the scoreboard to reflect that.
Right there, you see him stamp his foot down to shorten, and then he jumps well off the board.
Now they measure, but an outstanding jump by Carl Lewis. Again, as we've said, unbeaten in 50 consecutive long jump competitions. Longest streak in track and field.
Okay, no problem.
Family in the stands.
Of course, his sister, a great long jumper as well. She was third at the World Championships in 1983. He has a brother who was a very fine soccer player, so the whole family involved with sports. Both his parents were teachers of physical education in his hometown of Willingboro, New Jersey.
And there it is, 8.75, 28, 8.5 inches. So that will match. But this was not wind aided. So this was an outstanding jump by Carl Lewis, who has the lead after 4.
Well, a look at what's happening right now. The United States basketball team having no difficulty at all with Uruguay, 22-7 in the first half. And after 6 dives, Greg Louganis solidly in first place right now, and you can see that he has a big lead over the Mexican diver. But Carl Lewis is more than a long jumper today, and for that story, let's send you back to Dick Stockton. Dick?
He sure is, Brent, because just moments ago, Carl Lewis jumped out of order and set a new Pan Am record of 28, 8.5 inches legal jump, and now he will anchor the relay, the 4x100 relay. Mel Rosen, of Auburn, who's the U.S. head coach at the World Championships coming up in Rome, said if you expect to compete in Rome, you've got to compete here. We'll tell you how critical this is as you look at the world record. The United States set it at the LA Olympics, and the U.S., of course, also has the Pan American Games record as well. Here are the Americans competing, and the leadoff will be Lee McRae, who was the winner of the 100 earlier this week. Replacing Mark Witherspoon, who you saw get hurt last week, will be Lee McNeil, who's a high school rival of McRae in North Carolina. 30-year-old veteran Harvey Glantz will be third. There is Lee McNeil, who is the replacement. McNeil replacing Witherspoon. Harvey Glantz, who is the veteran of the group, will handle the third leg. And, of course, Carl Lewis will be the anchor. Those to watch will be, besides the United States in lane number 8, Cuba in lane 6, Jamaica in lane 7. And what's critical here, Craig Masback, of course, are the handoffs. How much time has the American team had to really get ready for this event?
Not much at all, and that was for 2 reasons. Carl didn't get into town until Thursday, so they had their first practice on Thursday, and Lee McNeil is a replacement. He's got to both take the baton and hand it off, and baton handoffs are a lot like a marriage. You got to work at them, and these guys really haven't had much of a chance to do that, but they're all experienced in their own right.
How would you know that? Here are the rest of the lanes. Antigua was scratched in lane 4, and we'll be watching Jamaica in lane 7, Cuba in lane 6, and the United States in lane 8. And by the way, Carl Lewis has anchored the 3 fastest relays in history. So the Americans, who have won 28 of 32 relays in all since the Pan American Games began, and won 8 out of 9 in this event. Cuba has finished second the most times, and Jamaica finished second on 1 occasion.
Well, we've got a great situation. Here we see Lee McRae. He won the 100 meters. He's our leadoff man. That's an enviable position. And on the end, you want to have what track people call a killer, a pressure performer. Last year at the Goodwill Games, Carl got it about 3 or 4 meters behind and managed to overtake the Soviet team and win for the United States. When he puts on that USA uniform, especially in the relay, he always does something special.
We'll be watching Cuba's Leandro Penalver, who will be running the second leg for Cuba, and Raymond Stewart, who of course is the anchor and outstanding sprinter for Jamaica.
I think the Cubans have put Penalver second to try to put pressure on the U.S. team. Cubans want to be ahead after the second leg.
Lee McRae, a tremendous victory, first American to win the 100 meters in the Pan Am Games since 1979.
He's a great starter. He says he starts on the sound of the gun. The other guys start on the echo.
1950, I should say, and a fair start. Cuba in lane 6 looking good starting out, and the Americans holding their own with Lee McRae. And the first handoff, McRae to Lee McNeil, the substitute here.
It's an excellent handoff, and McNeil looks very, very good down the backstretch, but it's Penalver who's starting to close for the Cubans.
Jamaica is in second, Cuba is in third right now, and on the handoff, here come the Cubans, and a fine handoff to the American Harvey Glantz.
Glantz looks good around the turn. He won the gold medal in '76 on the relay.
And a handoff to Carl Lewis. Cuba now is challenging for the lead. It's Carl Lewis of Cuba, Carl Lewis of the United States, and Andre Simon, and Lewis is going to win, and second place will go to Cuba. Jamaica finishes third, and a tremendous anchor
Cubans had a specific strategy here. They put Penalver, who's their best sprinter, on the second leg. In that way, as the Cubans were into the turn for the third leg, they were putting a lot of pressure on the American team. But Lewis did what he had to do. He took a baton, a safe baton handoff, and ran a great closing leg.
And the time unofficially is 38.41 and 4/100ths of a second away from the Pan American record. And a good time, though, indeed.
America has traditionally owned relay competition. They say that the relays came originally from the Pony Express, and it's McRae that's off in very fine form up on the left of our screen there. He gets a very, very good run around the turn, and this is an excellent handoff to Lee McNeil. He runs very, very well down the backstretch. It's the second man who runs the furthest in relay competitions because he takes the baton at the beginning of the zone and handoffs it at the end. And look at Harvey Glantz around the turn. He's the great veteran, 1976 Olympic champion in this event, but the Cubans started to close here. You see Carl, he changed hands as he took the baton, which slows him down a bit, but he's a great sprinter, and while Raymond Stewart in the yellow comes up on the Cuban, Carl runs away from both of them.
It is a photo finish for second place in the silver medal here as Jamaica came up strong. Raymond Stewart closing in on Andre Simon of Cuba, but Carl Lewis, Harvey Glantz, Lee McNeil, and Lee McRae captured, and this very well will be the American relay team. Talking to people beforehand, they don't know whether Mark Witherspoon is going to be able to run in Rome, and I think Lee McNeil, who was a substitute a week ago, I would guess a very fine performance indeed. Meanwhile, Jaime Jefferson, who is second to Carl Lewis in the long jump, just fouled on his fourth jump. Lewis is leading right now as he's established the Pan American record in this event. Here's the photo for second place, Cuba and Jamaica, Craig.
Well, Raymond Stewart came from way back for the Jamaicans. He's that great sprinter who finished second in the 100 meters. Hard to tell here who made it.
And of course, Carl Lewis will be able to now relax when he goes back for his last two jumps in the long jump. A lot of activity here before the full house at Indiana University Track Stadium. Well, we know somewhere in downtown Indianapolis, Pat O'Brien is cooking something up. And right now, let's send you to Pat O'Brien.
All right, Dick, and thank you very much. Dick, as you know, an international sporting event, one of the favorite pastimes is collecting, trading, and selling and bartering of pins. It has really gotten out of hand. All 38 countries have their own pins. All the sports have their own pins. All the athletes have pins. Basically, what you're looking at here is currency. These sell for $5 each. Cuba may have come in second in that event, but their pin is sold out here, and so a $5 pin then becomes a $30, $40, or $50 pin if you can find it. It's come to this, the Pin Plaza, and Michael Bell paid more than $250,000 for the rights to sell pins. They'll sell more than $2 million worth of pins during the event. This thing has got out of hand. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. We stay open until midnight every night. We're going 12, 14 hours a day selling as fast as we can.
Michael, what's the #1 pin here at the Pan Am Games?
Well, there's really two #1 pins. There's one that has Mickey Mouse on it, and that pin's selling for a minimum of $50 a pin.
$50?
$50. And this one's $100 a pin. It's Sam the Eagle and Amigo shaking hands.
And I'm wondering if these are going to become the baseball cards of the future.
I'd say so. They're expensive baseball cards of the future.
You've really created a market that doesn't exist. I mean, whatever you say, they go for, right?
Well, that's right. It's the basic economics 101. However many we have, that's what they go for. The lower, we have, the more they go for.
Got a lot of people here, and they let you get back to work. Craig is a pin collector. He has more than, what, 5,000, 6,000? 8,000 pins. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you, Pat.
Why do you collect pins? What's the joy in it?
Well, I enjoy traveling around different parts of the country. I've been to 3 Olympic Games. I've met a lot of nice people in the process who I still correspond with to this day. So it's basically meeting people.
Yeah. You see a lot of nickel and dime pins here, but Craig has got some that are worth looking at, especially this one, Brent, from the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. What would that be worth?
Oh, I'd say that'd be about $200.
$200. And so what are some of the other ones here? Show us.
This is a 1924 Paris Participants Badge, a 1928 Amsterdam Participants Badge, and a 1908 London Competitors Badge.
So it's big business, right?
Oh, yeah.
Brent, we got collectors here from all over the country. They've come to trade pins, and they're looking for the Brent Musburger pin. But all kidding aside, you figure for less than $1, you can make a little pin and sell it for $5, $10, $15, $20. It's a great country. Let's go back to you, Brent.
You got that right, Pat. I agree with you. I think they will become the baseball cards of the future. Let me just say something about Carl Lewis. I really don't know why watching him today, but he seems so much more compelling to me this afternoon than he was at any time during the Olympics in Los Angeles. Maybe it's age on Carl's part, but there he is in the long jump, and he goes out and anchors a relay team and turns in a fabulous lap. Just a great day for a marvelous athlete, and maybe this will be a comeback for Carl Lewis as far as his endorsements are concerned. Who knows? But what a spectacular showing he has given us here this afternoon in Indianapolis. And this is really just the beginning for us. Speaking of fine athletes, we're going to show you one over at the boxing venue a little bit later. Kelsey Banks out of Chicago, perhaps our most talented amateur fighter, will be there. And we want to send you back to the diving and check in on Greg Louganis, and we'll do this right after this message and a word from your local station.
10-meter platform diving competition. I'm John Neighbor with Olympic champion Phil Boggs seated alongside. It's Greg Louganis' event, and the people have turned out to watch him compete. You see him there on the 10-meter platform preparing for his 8th round dive. The standings after 7. Greg Louganis, 423 with a 30-point lead over Jesus Mena from Mexico. Dave Bedard is in 3rd. We're now in the 8th of 10 rounds, so this is his 3rd to last dive. He'll be doing a forward 3.5 somersaults in pike position, degree of difficulty 3.0.
And this is where Greg Louganis typically vaults into the lead. He's way ahead already, and he's doing the most difficult somersaulting and twisting optionals done in competition.
Crowd's been very supportive here at Indianapolis. They've seen him dive well in the past. This is also the headquarters city for the sport of diving. Nine and a half, a lot of nines from the judges. He just broke the 500-point barrier with 2 dives remaining. So Greg Louganis, who also holds the Pan American record and the world record in this event, is well on his way.
And pleased with that performance. Watch the takeoff. This is 3.5 somersaults from 33 feet up in the air. He's got 1.5 somersaults done above the platform. Be like jumping off the ground with no spring in it. That's cement. Rotates 3.5 times, and he's just deadly accurate, right straight in.
So that score will vault him into more of a lead. He now has some 65 points of a lead at this point over Matt Scoggin of the United States, who's back into 2nd place in medal contention.
You had 2 choices, short or straight in. Glad you picked the second one. Yeah. You were just real late up here.
Yeah, I felt that as soon as I went off.
You got it down great, though. Nice work. Okay, swing high all the way over the top and circle so you get tight tuck and be flat.
And no matter how good the dive is, coach comes in and says, you could make it better.
Always immediate feedback, an essential part of this sport. So as Louganis begins to concentrate on his 9th round, let's take a look at the scores after 8. Louganis, our leader, Matt Scoggin of the United States in silver medal contention. Jesus Mena is in 3rd right now, but Scoggin is preparing for his next round dive. His 9th round will be an inward 3.5 somersault in tuck position, 3.2 degree of difficulty.
Now, Matt faltered early in the competition, but he's certainly come on late. Same thing he did in the U.S. Nationals.
The crowd very supportive. This man who turns 24 years old tomorrow. Local favorite, and he has beaten Louganis in the past. Perhaps not today, but...
Not looking likely today, but this is where he's excelled in the competition, near the end with the most difficult dives. This an inward 3.5 somersaults is the most difficult dive done in this direction off the platform. Keep him in 2nd place, and we'll put a little pressure on him.
So Matt Scoggin, the 2nd best American, turns in his best dive of the competition so far. The crowd eagerly awaiting the judges' scores. They hope to see 1 or 2 10s. Perhaps that's a little low for some of the spectators. 8.5s and 9s they feel is a little bit lower than perhaps he should have deserved. But that will keep him solidly in second place.
Watch on the takeoff. This is an inward 3 1/2 somersaults. You need to be a little bit close to the platform just to make it. You can see head just clears the platform, but 2 rotations at platform level. Feet came apart a little bit right there, but perfectly straight in on the entry. Just pulls it around underwater.
So Matt Scoggin can towel himself down while he's awaiting his next dive on the final dive of the competition for him. We'll be back with more after we break for this brief word.
CBS Sports coverage of the 10th Pan American Games is sponsored by Prudential Bates Securities. Rock solid, market wise. Delta Faucet, designs that last. Bud Light, everything else is just a light. And by Kellogg's Brand Plates, the great tasting way to help keep yourself fit on the inside.
The crossroads of America, as seen from the Goodyear Blimp America, about 1,000 feet above the ground here at Indianapolis. And you got the Goodyear Blimp's view of some of the tremendous facilities that they have here in Indianapolis, and that really has helped enhance these games. The taxpayers did not have to put out a lot of money for new buildings, such as the Market Square Arena used by the NBA team, where the United States have a lead going into the locker room at the half. I guess there's about 2 minutes left in that game. 49-25 is the score over there right now. Now, we do have some boxing coming your way. Let's get a report. So let's go over to Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy to see what we've got coming up. Tim?
All right, Brent, we're here at the boxing venue in the Convention Center in downtown Indianapolis, and there will be 3 of the American team on the boxing card this afternoon. 5 Americans have already advanced into the second round of the boxing action. Earlier today, we watched these 3 young American boxers arrive here at the Convention Center, led by the 106-pounder. That's the junior flyweight, and his name is Michael Carbajal from Phoenix, Arizona. That's Michael on the right of your screen. In the middle is Todd Foster, 139-pounder, and Kelsey Banks, who's had 1 fight already. He's the featherweight world champion, and he will advance against the Cuban boxer today. His name is Arnaldo Mesa, and we were impressed with Mesa in his opening round. And this is a rematch. They have met once before, Gil.
Yes, and Banks won a very close decision last time out, Tim. I think this is going to be one of the key matches in the entire tournament. The first time the United States and Cuba are confronting each other. Banks is our leader. He's our world champion. If he gets slick, it's going to deflate a lot of balloons.
Well, for Carbajal and Foster, it'll be their first action of the games. Michael Carbajal meets Colin Moore of Guyana, and Carbajal, again, with more international experience than a boxer from Guyana, figures to be the favorite there.
Yeah, Carbajal, to me, is a very, very strong 106-pounder with very accurate hands. He's improving, coming along. I think he's going to be a good fighter in this tournament.
Todd Foster impressed us at the Pan Am box office in Colorado Springs. He's from Great Falls, Montana. He makes his debut today against a boxer from Antigua, George Kelman.
Todd Foster does what you have to do to win in the amateurs. He's busy, he's shifty, side to side, and scores points. Very, very accurate hands. I'm looking for an exciting fight with Todd Foster today.
You know what was nice about that shot of them coming in is if you could ever look for a representation of sports in America or just our population in this country, you had young Carbajal. He's of Indian-Mexican heritage, but he's an American from Phoenix, Arizona. You had a young black man from Chicago, Illinois, and Kelsey Banks, and you had Todd Foster from Great Falls, Montana. Great representation for all of the teams here at the Pan American Games. So we'll be back with the boxing action. Right now, let's return you to Brent Musburger. To Jim Neighbor, let's make it Jim Neighbor.
Tim, we look forward to that action, and we are going to go to diving right now in John Neighbor as Louganis is closing in on that gold medal. So let's go to John now along with Phil Boggs. John?
Thanks, Brendan. Indeed, Louganis is closing in on the gold medal. He's got 2 dives remaining. He's in a comfortable lead. He's at the end of the rotation of the 9th round. So Louganis is preparing for a backward 3.5 somersaults, tuck position.
He has 2 dives remaining. They're his 2 most difficult dives in the list. The most difficult optional dive, somersaulting dive that can be done from either of the directions. First one he chooses is the back 3.5 somersault.
27 years of age, gold medalist twice at the Los Angeles Olympics, silver medalist in the games you won the gold medal, Phil Boggs. Greg Louganis has been around for a long time, and he's doing very, very well.
One dive remaining and a big lead.
So we conclude the 9th round of diving here at the men's 10-meter platform, and there you have it. The first 10s from the judges.
Here's why, John. Watch the takeoff. 3.5 somersaults backwards. Easily 2 somersaults at platform level. He finishes 3.5. That's a perfect entry. Straight in, and he takes the splash right under with him.
So with 1 dive remaining, there's your leader, Greg Louganis. We'll be back to see him again. But first, Dick Stockton at track and field.
Here are the final results in the men's 4x100 meter race, and of course this relay could very well be the world championship effort in Rome coming up. The United States won the gold medal, Cuba in 2nd place, and Jamaica 3rd. Here are the current standings in the men's long jump, and Carl Lewis with a new Pan American record has the lead, and Jaime Jefferson had a pretty good jump on his 4th attempt, 27 feet 10 inches. That was wind aided, but it's good enough to give him 2nd place, and Larry Myrick's in 3rd has faltered after a good first jump, Craig.
Well, Myrick's actually rode a great wind for his best jump also in the 4th round, so he knows that he's still jumping well, but it's getting late for him to start having those 28-foot jumps. He usually has his best jumps earlier in the competition.
So now Carl has 2 more jumps. 28.8. Keep in mind that his best jump ever was 28.10 1/4. He's done it twice, one time here in Indianapolis, and with 2 jumps left, and you've seen what he's done today, 22, 28.8, 28 and 28.8. He's got a pretty strong wind behind him. What about the possibility of approaching 29 now?
Well, there are 2 sides to it. One, he's a little tired, having taken 4 jumps already, plus run on the relay. The other side is he knows he's won this competition. The pressure is off in that regard. Now he knows he could just go out there and let it hang out. And I know that Carl came here for that reason, the record-setting reason. He hasn't forgotten that at this point. He's got 2 jumps. I'm sure he's still thinking record in his mind right here.
Well, Tom Tellez said the world record is what he prepared for. So he's had the motivation.
Carl is already thinking ahead a little bit towards next year. Says he wants to match his 4 gold medals of 1984. And then he says he's going to run a couple more years, maybe start running the 400 a little bit.
And retirement looms at some point, and he says when you start thinking of retirement, these kinds of events mean more to you. The wind conditions are not good for him right now. He got off a terrific jump, wind aided by a pretty substantial margin, and it was a legal jump.
It's about 8-mile-per-hour wind, which is over the allowable 4.5 miles per hour. And Carl says, how do you do the long jump? How do you beat Carl Lewis? Says you got to have a lot of aggression as you run towards the board. The board is only 8 inches wide, and we'll see here he actually goes behind the board, so he's losing 8 inches immediately on his jump. Then you got to run as if you're running off a cliff. Well, unfortunately, here we see again another angle. Carl, good speed on the runway, but he stutters a little bit at the end, takes off behind the board, and then stretches out well, but 8 meters 68.
And that's 28.5 3/4 inches, so that is his 3rd best jump. Well, coming up, we have one of the featured races of these games, the men's 800-meter race, in just a moment. Carl Lewis, who has 1 jump left, is the leader in the men's long jump right now. He has the new Pan American Games record. Jaime Jefferson of Cuba is 2nd. Larry Myrick's of the United States is 3rd. We're joined now, along with Craig Masbach, by Mary Slaney. We're ready now for the men's 800-meter run. And in this race, the runners will stay in their lanes around the first turn and then break for the pole. Sebastian Coe has the world record, and James Robinson, the 1979 San Juan Pan Am Games, has the Pan Am Games. And Of course, William Weike finally is reaching the moment of truth. He had 4 years to wait for this moment. Out of Venezuela, the 1983 Pan American Games were in his native Caracas, and he had a chance to win the gold medal, and of course the disaster that has been on his mind ever since. And everyone in the sold-out stadium was looking for William to win this race, Craig.
The stadium was rocking. There you see the sign, Weike is Venezuela. For a half hour before the race, they chanted his name. When he came out on the track, they cheered for him, and he was in position to win. 100 meters to go, on the shoulder of Jose Luis Barbosa, who's in our race today, but down to the track he went. And Alberto Guimaraes of Brazil carried on for the victory. Stanley Redwine, who's also in our race today, finished third. But Weike lay on the track wondering what had happened. He put himself in position to win. He didn't get the victory.
Alberto Guimaraes was the winner. And now let's come out and take a look at the lane assignments here. And there you're looking at William Weike of Venezuela, who will begin in lane number 7. And the Americans to watch in lane number 1, Johnny Gray. And Gray is the American record holder, an American Stanley Redwine from Fayetteville, Arkansas, who finished second to Gray at the U.S. Championships, is in lane 3. And the man you mentioned, Jose Luis Barbosa, who has the fastest time in the world this year, will begin in lane number 4 from Brazil. Mary?
Well, I think that Weike has to be very single-mindedness in this event because of his situation. And also at this point, it's not away from his mind that Barbosa has got the fastest time in the world this year in this event.
Who do you think will set the pace here, Craig?
Well, it's interesting. When they know that they can win races, both Barbosa and Gray like to lead. But when
excuse me, Larry Myrick's just went into second place with a 28-1 3/4 long jump. He had been slumping since the first leap, and this one puts him into second behind Carl Lewis.
Oh, right on the board there. That's his 4th 28-foot jump in his career. I'm sorry, his 7th 28-foot jump in his career. An excellent performance in the 5th round.
All right, once again, your thoughts about the early pace here.
I was saying both Barbosa and Gray like to lead when they know they can win. I talked to Barbosa the other day. He said, I know I can win this race. I'm going to take the lead here also.
Barbosa trains by himself, and that's one of the methods of training that my coach and his coach the same has, and that's training alone so you can lead with a lot of confidence.
Johnny Gray with the lead. Barbosa is in second right now. Stanley Redwine of the United States is in third. And it looked as if Weike might have been pushed again in the back.
But when I spoke to Weike yesterday, he said his advantage in this race is that really Gray and Barbosa are going to look at each other. If he can put himself in good position, he can be the one that can sweep by the end if they're looking at each other. But right now, he's right on the inside, not in good position at all.
Weike is in 4th place right now as we go to the bell lap.
It looks to me that Weike's running a bit timid, and Barbosa is doing exactly what he plans to do. He's going to hang on to Gray, and it's going to be a race.
It is a slow pace nonetheless, and Johnny Gray has Jose Luis Barbosa right on his shoulder. Redwine is third. Weike is 4th right now. Now Paul Osland of Canada, who has run a 146.7, is making a move.
Look at the move of Redwine challenging Gray, going by Barbosa. A very strong move, but Gray responds.
Barbosa can come back, though. He is a strong finisher, and this is not over yet.
Redwine is in second behind Johnny Gray. Barbosa's in third from Brazil, and Osland of Canada now in 4th place. Johnny Gray has the lead, and here comes Barbosa making his move.
And Gray is looking for him, which is dangerous at this time in a race.
But he's going to win, and he knows it. Johnny Gray captures the men's 800. Second place, Jose Luis Barbosa of Brazil, and Stanley Redwine. The other American runner comes in third. The time, 146.79, and nowhere near a Pan American mark, but a victory for the United States with a gold and a bronze.
What a disappointment for William Weike. You know, he never put himself in the race at all. He left himself, as Mary pointed out, in a lot of trouble on the first lap and never got into it. A timid race.
I think he was just a little bit leery with the memories of what had happened in Caracas.
But Johnny Gray, that's a good victory for him. He's been a guy who's had trouble in the big races. He was 7th in the Olympics in 1984 when he went in as one of the favorites. Now he knows he's on his way to the World Championships with a big victory.
Mary, let me ask you something. We're going to see Weike perhaps get pushed, but this question is for you now. now as we see this incident. Can you learn a lesson watching Weiki's reaction in this race to what you hope will be in the Olympics in '88?
I can learn a lesson, and my lesson is that you cannot run everybody else's race, and that's what Weiki was doing here. He was running everybody else's race, so he got into a little bit of trouble. And the same with me at the Olympics. I got into trouble running other people's races.
Here, as you see them in the home stretch, I think the gray left himself vulnerable here. He kept looking for Barbosa. You get to that home stretch, you look at the finish line and you run straight for it. You don't start wondering where your competitors are.
So Johnny Gray, three-time U.S. champion and the American record holder, captures the gold medal in the men's 800 meters here at the Pan American Games on the final day of track and field. Jose Luis Barbosa of Brazil captures the silver, and the Stanley Red Wine the bronze. And how disappointed William Weiki must feel right now. Meanwhile, Jaime Jefferson, who at this point is in third place in the men's long jump, is attempting his 6th and final jump. His best today was 27 feet 10 inches. It was wind aided, and this is his last attempt to move into second place.
He's been close to his personal best of 27:10 1/4 with that last jump, or jump two jumps ago. He's been very strong all day, and Jefferson's a veteran competitor. He's a great sprinter like Lewis, and he's got a chance to ride this very strong wind. The winds are now gusting up to about 10 miles per hour. If he can ride one of those winds, he can take off and really have a great jump.
Keep in mind that the wind would affect any records, but it doesn't affect the distance in the competition.
No, there's certainly cases where the wind has even shifted dramatically during a competition where the first guy to jump had the wind at his back and won on that first jump.
And Jefferson. And that is a fair jump. And the wind was died down, so that was a legal jump, we think. It says 1.2 on the wind gauge.
Well, and because the wind was not strong, suddenly it dropped to about 2 miles per hour. That's why he started off from behind the board. And you'll see as he comes down very, very strong, he'll step right on the board just at the start of it, probably loses about 6 or 7 inches with that effort.
All right, that was Jefferson's last jump. We still have Lewis to come. Myrick's is in second right now as we see the time of 8:51, the distance 27 feet 11 inches. That may be his all-time best for Jefferson, and he will still remain in third place in the long jump. We'll be back with more right now. Let's go back to Brent Musburger at the CBS Broadcast Center.
All right, Dick, thank you. By far the strongest United States track and field team ever in the Pan American Games, doing a fabulous job. Greg Louganis closing in on that gold medal. We want to conclude that coverage for the natatorium. Also, Kelsey Banks will be boxing soon. We'll have live coverage of that, and we will continue. But quickly, here is the halftime score you could see of our basketball game. The United States team routing Uruguay, and we will continue from Indianapolis in just a moment. Jumping in, let's send you back to Dick Stockton. Dick.
Dick Stockton and Craig Masback back here at the Indiana University Track Stadium, and we're coming to the conclusion of the men's long jump competition. Carl Lewis, who is coming here with the idea of approaching or maybe surpassing Bob Beeman's 29.2½ world record, has the lead even though he hasn't come that close, and it's a Pan American record. Jaime Jefferson with a 27.11 is in third, and Myrick's with a great jump on his 5th attempt, 28.1 3/4, is in second. So the United States is 1-2 right now, and Jefferson already has taken his 6 jumps. Lewis has 1 jumper in front of him before he attempts his 6th and final attempt. Olivier Cartier of Brazil will be 1 jumper before Carl Lewis's last attempt.
Brazil's had some good success at the Pan American Games. Joaquin Cruz, who we saw win the 1,500 meters earlier in the week, they won the steeplechase as well. One of the top South American powers in track and field. You can see that Cartier just has nowhere near the speed of Myrick's or Jefferson or Lewis on the runway.
He had a headwind there, and it was a fair jump.
a fair jump, but he just doesn't have the power or the speed. So when he gets to the runway, he can't even execute the same sort of motions in the air as the other jumpers.
Greg, while we wait for Carl Lewis for his sixth jump, one man we haven't mentioned is Raymond Pierre, who won the 400 in a tremendous victory, beating Burt Cameron of Jamaica, and maybe a kind of a signal race for this young man who may be coming into his own now.
Well, Pierre really was unexpected as far as the 400-meter open race was concerned. We knew that we'd see him in the relay, but he was put on the team at the last moment. He was fifth in our national championships, and we had no other American entrant in that event. Suddenly, they put him in the open 400 against Cameron, the '83 world champion. He came through with a brilliant race.
A headwind, slight headwind, that's right this moment, and that probably will change as Carl comes down the runway for his 23 steps, 173 feet. He said he liked the runway because it is longer than most and harder. This is his last chance.
You know, you mentioned Myrick's in second with that great 28-foot jump. He's finished second to Lewis 13 times during Lewis's 50-meet win streak, so it's not an unaccustomed situation for him.
Evelyn, who competed as the hurdler, first Pan Am Games back in '51.
The wind is swirling now, Dick, and that's what's holding Carl up. He really knows that he's got to have perfect conditions for the record. He realizes that it's within his grasp, but he's just going to wait now until he has those perfect conditions. Unlikely, unfortunately, given the wind today.
Basically, though, the wind conditions have not been ideal these 2 days.
No, I was here in 1983 when Carl jumped an excellent series of jumps in the national championships. Then the wind was completely still. It was a warm day, which Carl likes. Here, the wind has really worked against him just about on every jump. Carl has 3 minutes in which to take each of his jumps. He's got about a minute and a half left. He'll wait until the wind, he feels the wind at his back.
This capacity crowd is hushed like it hasn't been all week.
You know, Dick, you mentioned that this record has stood for 19 years. Jesse Owens set a record in the 1936 Olympics in long jump that stood for 24 years. So maybe Lewis is facing that sort of history.
All right, here it is. Final attempt by Carl Lewis. Well, he's not going to break Bob Beeman's record today. It was a fair jump and a 4.1 wind-aided jump. No record, but a great series of jumps for Carl Lewis, who will stretch his consecutive winning streak in long jump competitions to 51 with the victory here at the Pan American Games.
See a little bit of the edge off Carl here as far as his speed goes. His sixth jump, 60 yards, he has to run at full speed for each of those jumps. But I tell you, when he got to the board, he was all aggression. He, again, was behind the board. Looked like he lost at least a foot. Had good extension, but he just didn't have the necessary conditions for a record today.
And 28.5 3/4 inches for Carl Lewis. That was wind-aided. And Carl's mother knew it wasn't to be. Lewis remains in first place, and the only part of this puzzle that hasn't been filled out is Larry Myrick's, who last jumped at 28.1 3/4 and has one remaining to try to catch Carl.
Let's put things in a little bit of perspective. You know, only 7 men in history have broken 28 feet in the long jump. Carl's now done it 5 times in this one competition. Still a great competition, but neither he nor us are obviously satisfied with the fact that he didn't break the record.
Carl Lewis, the leader right now. Myrick's has one more. We'll be back with an interview with Carl Lewis a little later on. Meanwhile, the diving competition has been completed over at the natatorium. And when we come back, it'll be John Neighbor and Phil Boggs will report. Now, they're here now with it. So let's go to the natatorium.
Well, while you all were watching Carl Lewis, we were enjoying Greg Louganis completing his 10th round. The competition is now over in the standings you see on the board. Louganis, our winner with a new Pan Am record, 694 points. Matt Scoggin from the United States snuck in for the silver, and Dave Bedard was the bronze. The final dive for Louganis, a reverse 3.5 somersault in tuck position.
John, this is the most difficult dive being done in competition today off the platform. And Greg saved his toughest and best for last.
That was more than enough to win the gold medal for Greg Louganis. He received one perfect 10 from the judges on that, and that final score, again, a new Pan Am record, breaking his own record by 17 points. And with the gold and the silver medalists, both from the United States, down on pool deck, Phil Boggs.
Greg, congratulations. The first time a triple-double. Gold medals in springboard and platform, 3 Pan Ams in a row, and another record. But we've come to expect that. What did you expect?
Well, I was glad that I had a good performance. I felt good. I felt strong. I felt real steady. I felt like I dove smart. Some things that I was really proud of, and other things I feel that I need to work on.
Well, you had a tough year, but does this cap the year the right way?
Definitely. This is icing on the cake. It's great.
And our silver medalist, Matt Scoggin. Matt, again, chasing Louganis and the legend and a record. But how about your performance today?
I felt good about my last 4 or 5 dives. I came back to get the silver medal. My 5th optional, or my first optional, my cut through, I missed it again. It's becoming a habit, but I'm going to try and stop that and get it ready for the 88 trials.
What about chasing Greg?
I'm not after Greg. I'm just after doing my best performance and trying to do all 10 dives and try and win.
Great performance anyway. Congratulations, both of you. John Neighbor.
Congratulations to both you gentlemen. The final standings once again. Greg Louganis, 694 and change. Matt Scoggin for silver medal. Dave Bedard in third from Canada. That's all for the diving here. Let's go now to Brent Musburger at the CBS Broadcast Center.
All right, John, and that triple-double referred to on the graphic, he swept the board in San Juan, swept it again in Caracas 4 years ago, and here now in Indianapolis. We're going to hear from another star attraction, Carl Lewis, and also we'll have live coverage from the boxing venue with Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy when we continue on CBS after these messages from your local stations. Already underway over at the Convention Center in the 3rd round. Tim Ryan, pick it up.
We've got a minute and a half remaining in the final round here of this 106-pound light flyweight quarterfinal match. Michael Carbajal from Phoenix, Arizona against Colin Moore of Guyana. And Carbajal, as we saw it on our card, Gil Clancy and I have him ahead. 25-year-old Colin Moore has been a tough customer, but the sharper punching and more accurate Michael Carbajal, in our view, is leading this bout. We're in the final round.
Look at that beautiful combination by Carbajal, Tim. That's just a carbon copy of what's been going on for the entire fight.
The winner of this match will meet Juan Torres, the Cuban, in the semifinal of this 106-pound bout. We're under a minute to go in the bout. Referee is Luis Brito of Venezuela. Carbajal very calm and poised and delivers those combinations so precisely, Gil.
Very accurate hands, Tim, and he goes to the body and head. Yet a lot of amateurs are headhunters, not Carbajal. He can put them both places.
Brother Danny, the trainer, in the corner.
And Tim, he's fighting a strong 25-year-old guy. He's hit him with everything but the kitchen sink. Shook his head that time. He wobbled him a little bit, Tim. More wobbled.
He's been able to kind of pick up the pace through the course of this fight. He's been a little stronger each round. Started out a little bit slowly, but he's really asserted dominance over Colin Moore of Guyana.
Tim, he's one of the strongest 106-pounders I've ever seen, Carbajal.
Head coach Roosevelt Sanders got to feel very good about his performance in his first match here. And that's it. It's all over with Michael Carbajal finishing impressively against Colin Moore of Guyana. Waiting for him in the corner is Brother Danny and head coach Roosevelt Sanders. We'll be back with the decision here in this light flyweight bout, and more boxing action ahead, live from the boxing venue in Indianapolis. We'll be right back in a moment. Well, now for the decision in the Michael Carbajal-Colin Moore fight. Let's get to the ring announcer.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the 48 kilogram, 106-pound weight category, we have a unanimous decision. Señoras y señores, en la categoría de peso de 48 kilogramos, 106 libras, tenemos una decisión unánime. And the winner, in the blue corner, from the United States of America, Michael Carbajal.
So Michael Carbajal advances to the semifinal round, where he'll meet the Cuban next. And coming up here at the boxing venue will be the featherweight bout between Kelsey Banks and Arnaldo Mesa of Cuba. Right now, let's take you to Brent Musburger at the broadcast center.
All right, Tim, we'll come back for that, but we have Carl Lewis standing by over to track and field venue, so let's go back to Dick Stockton. Dick?
Carl Lewis has won the gold medal, establishing a Pan American Games record in the long jump, although he did not break Bob Beeman's record, which has lasted 19 years and still going. And right now, down on the infield is Carl Lewis with Irv Cross. Irv?
Well, Carl, Chris, it's a hot day for sure. I mean, you worked very hard, but you set the Pan Am record today, but you didn't get the world record you wanted. Was that a disappointment for you?
Yeah, Irv, you know, I felt that I could have jumped a little bit farther, but as you know, the wind conditions are still pretty tough. The nice thing about it is that everybody came here and they were very supportive. I won the Pan Am gold, and I still have some other meets to try to get that record.
I just saw you give a pair of shoes away to a couple of youngsters here. Why?
Well, you know, I like to share a little bit of moment. The people were very nice to me today, so I can get a million pairs, but those kids can't get them, so I'm happy to give them away.
Well, could you tell when you walked into the stadium today that conditions were right or not right for a world record effort?
Well, when I walked in, the wind was very swirly like it was yesterday. But jumping yesterday helped me jump farther today because I was able to gauge it a little bit better. But after the relay, I was very tired because I ran a hard leg there, and I wasn't able to recover like I wanted to.
You had some difficulty getting your steps together. Even though you had some good jumps, you weren't quite on the board the way you wanted to. Why?
Well, just like I said, the wind conditions were still difficult. The problem we were having is that the wind would blow at our backs at the beginning of the run and then blow at our face at the board or vice versa. So it makes it difficult, but everybody was able to get in one good jump at least, and I was glad that Larry was able to jump 28 because he deserves it. And I still almost jumped the personal best, so it ended up working out well.
Yeah, your coach told me yesterday, he said, you know, world records don't come when you predict it. They come when you least expect it. Right. Now, did you feel that you still had a shot at it today?
I did, Irv. You know, I really did. And after the 228-foot-8 jumps, I really felt I was certain I had an opportunity. But, you know, things just didn't work out. And I don't think I'm down yet. It just makes it more suspenseful. Hey, I'm not getting old yet. I can still do it. Keep rooting. Don't give up on me.
Oh, no one's giving up on you. But yeah, how do you, what's your timetable, though, from here, though, Carl? The World Games, you know, are coming up at the end of the month. But what else is in your timetable? You're busy doing so many things.
Yeah, well, I'm supposed to shoot another film in the fall and then finish working on the album in the fall. And then next year, I'm going to clear all that out so I can concentrate on running again. I don't plan to retire for at least a couple of years. So the next 2 years, I'm going to concentrate even more on that record. I did more than last year, and I was closer, so we can get it sooner or later.
Well, you still have jumped over 28 feet more than anybody in the history of track and field. We loved every jump. Thanks very much. So, Dick.
All right, Irv, thank you very much. We had 6 jumps of 28 feet or more, 5 of them by Carl Lewis and 1 by the silver medalist, Larry Meyerings. Right now, let's go back to Brent Musburger at the CBS Broadcast Center. Brent?
And, Dick, another sensational performance was turned in by Greg Louganis, and this was the medal ceremony a few moments ago. Really a remarkable athlete. He has won that triple-double, sweeping the diving in San Juan, Caracas, Venezuela, and now here in Indianapolis. And Matt Scoggin, of course, won the silver medal, and then they played the national anthem just moments ago.
He has won both sports, 1979, 1983, and here in 1987. He is having an
action in boxing. Let's go to Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy.
We have just seen the final seconds of round one. Kelsey Banks and Arnaldo Mesa of Cuba, the first confrontation between the two favored teams in boxing, Cuba and the U.S. Banks jabbed effectively right to the final 20 seconds of the round, and Gil and I thought at that point he was leading in the scoring very comfortably. However, suddenly this happened. As we go back on videotape, you'll see a short, sharp punch from the Cuban. Right there is a left hand, Arnaldo Mesa, and down goes Banks. Now, I don't think, Gil, that Banks has fully really recovered from that knockdown, even as we see him in his corner now.
All right, Tim, but you have to remember, he was knocked down, but he won the entire round before and after the knockdown. So according to amateur rules, he should be way ahead. Now, he may not have completely recovered, but if he is completely recovered, I think he's going to be able to outbox Mesa.
Well, that's a good point to make. Remember that in amateur boxing, that knockdown punch counts no more than any other punch. Literally a third of a point. The way they score, 3 punches counts a point. So Banks, if he has recovered from the effect of that short, sharp shot from Mesa, then Banks, as we saw it, won the first round comfortably. We're in round number 2. They've met once before. Banks won a decision over Mesa in their previous meeting.
That's him. We have southpaw against southpaw.
That upright style, many of the Cubans favor. European, Soviet style, whatever you want to call it. Looks a little bit different, but it's very effective for Mesa.
Tim, I just don't think that Banks should try to punch with Mesa. He should do what he was doing the entire first round. Just box. He can outpoint him. His hands are fast. He has the height, and he has an accurate right jab. That's what he should be using.
In his first outing, Banks defeated Marcos Cristofalo of Argentina. He was not at his best. He won the fight easily because he was simply a more skilled boxer, but he looks a lot better here today than he did against Cristofalo.
And Mesa was just looking to nail him with that big left hand, and there he threw it again.
Now Banks pouring it on to Mesa.
He's getting over anxious though, Tim. He's reaching in. You can always nail those tall guys when they reach.
Referee is Alfredo Lamadrid from Colombia. 5 judges do the scoring. 20 points to the winner of a round.
And Banks is boxing, and now he has his hands up, throwing those combinations. But Cuban has a heavy left hand, Tim. Looks to load up on it. But that's not the way to win in the amateurs. Now Banks is scoring points. But he shouldn't run in, Tim. Take his time. Pick this guy apart.
Well, there's a little pride at work, I think. Perhaps embarrassment at the knockdown suffered by Banks at the end of round 1. Kelsey Banks from Chicago, Illinois, the 1986 world champion.
Doing a job on a Cuban now, Tim.
Under a minute to go in the second round. 20-year-old Arnaldo Mesa from Holguin, Cuba. A bronze in the World Championships in the bantamweight division a year ago.
Banks made some recovery, Tim. That's that conditioning.
Solid left landed by Mesa there.
Good left hand by Banks.
Banks comes right back, and he scores with 2 in a row. Final seconds of the second round.
And Mesa looks like he's a little tired, Tim.
Final round, Kelsey Banks and Arnaldo Mesa. Featherweight. The world champion Banks, as we see it, won the first 2 rounds, despite that one solid shot that knocked him down at the end of round 1.
Good stiff right jab by Banks, Tim. He's busy. He just shouldn't get over anxious and reach. Can't walk into that left hand.
This is a quarterfinal round in the featherweight division.
Mesa has some awkward style, Tim. That's the Russian style. Teach that to their amateur boxers.
Mesa's favorite American boxer is Mark Breland. former great amateur, of course, now in the pros.
And Banks is boxing something. He's dropping that right hand, Tim. Very loose. Look at Mesa with his hands down. Both hands at his sides. He looks to turn over that left hand, Tim. That's not the way to win an amateur fight. You have to score points, and Banks has been scoring the points.
Mesa defeated a tough customer, Omar Qatari, in his first round, a Venezuelan, but he has not looked nearly as good so far here against Banks.
Banks is a little quicker, a little better form, in and out. And he has Mesa backing up and running around the ring. I don't know why. He can't think he's winning the fight. What do you think the story is, Tim? Why is he fighting like that?
I can't believe that his
He must know he's not ahead. He's getting hurt. That's what I think is happening,
That
Tim.
may be. I can't believe his coach wants this performance from Mesa, acting as though he's ahead in this bout.
Not after what happened to him in the second round. It's only been one big punch by Mesa in the entire fight.
Maybe he thinks he's going to come up with one more and finish it. That's unlikely in our view. Approaching the minute-to-go mark in the bout.
Look at those jabs by Banks. Beautiful punches.
He's pushed down there by Mesa.
Low down by Mesa.
No knockdown. Mesa now looking up at the clock. It shows 1:03 to go. His coach is screaming at him. Alcides Segarra, the head coach of the Cuban team, trying to get him out there to be more active.
He's trying to throw that big left hand, Tim. Look at him winging it, but he's not hitting him. Beautiful combination by Banks.
Banks staying closer now, smothering Mesa.
There's that big left hand. He's just chopping, like chopping wood. Mesa, that's all he has, that left hand. Now he's running away again. Banks is in complete control of this fight now, Tim.
That's the end of the bout. That's the end of the bout. Kelsey Banks, standing ovation from the partisan crowd here at Indianapolis. So Kelsey Banks will await the decision here at the boxing venue of his match against Arnaldo Mesa. Let's go to Brent. We'll come back for the decision.
Just a marvelous fight, the best one so far. And let me update that basketball score quickly. The United States having no trouble at all, leading Uruguay 87-64. Now, meanwhile, I had two very interesting spectators watching the action. The closest to me is Michael Bent. He is our heavyweight. And next to him, Riddick Bowe, our super heavyweight. Neither of them have been out to box yet. And, Michael, let me start with you. Who won this fight that we were watching here?
I thought Kelsey Banks did more than enough to win the fight.
Even though he was knocked down in the first round? Riddick, how about you? Do you agree with that?
Well, the knockdown was only scored as 1 point, so I think I agree with Michael.
Riddick, let me ask you, you fight a Cuban this week. Have you fought a Cuban before? Do you know anything about your upcoming opponent?
Well, I've seen him several times, but no problem.
No problem? No problem. Michael, how about you?
Felix Savon, the world champion.
He's one of the great amateur fighters in the world. You draw him right away?
Yes, I do.
Let me ask you why you had to wait so long before your first bout. I'm kind of confused about that.
It all depends upon how many guys in your weight class. In a smaller weight class, they have like 12, 13 guys per bracket. We have 4 or 5 per bracket, so we get to fight at least amount of times, about 2 or 3 times.
Michael, didn't your father make some headlines up in the New York area?
He made a little bit of headlines, yeah.
Yeah, how did he do that? Tell everybody that stuff.
State lottery.
He won the New York State Lottery. What year was that?
That was last year, 86, January of 86.
And what did he do with his $1 million payoff?
He's just having a good time. I mean, he's still working for New York State's Transit Authority. He's just having a good time with it.
That's
enjoying
great.
life.
I hope he's here watching you fight.
I hope he is too.
All right. And Riddick, what do you do when you're not a member of our boxing team?
Well, basically going home, I just train, go to college.
Where do you go to school?
Kingsborough Community College.
Would you like to eventually become a professional fighter?
Maybe someday.
All right, well, let's go back and find out about the decision. You really never know about international competition, as both of these fine young boxers realize. But let's go back to Tim and Gil. Tim?
All right, Brent, we're awaiting the decision here for Kelsey Banks and Arnaldo Mesa. The first meeting between a Cuban and an American, the two favored teams for all of the gold medals in the boxing at the Pan American Games. And they're sometimes a little slow getting the decisions around. There are 5 judges, remember, and Gil, of course, even though it takes a little while to get a decision in amateur boxing, you do get a little concerned when it takes longer than a couple of minutes, being as there are 5 judges involved.
Well, Tim, the way we've been educated, there shouldn't be any doubt about the decision. Mesa won 5 seconds of 1 round. Banks won the rest of the fight.
Okay, well, they have it ready now. Here's the decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the 57-kilogram, 125-pound weight category, we have a 3-2 decision. Señoras y señores, en la categoría de peso de 57 kilogramos, 125 libras, tenemos una decisión de 3-2. And the winner, in the red corner from the United States of America, Kelsey Banks.
Well, it is Kelsey Banks on a 3-2 decision, meaning 3 judges voted for Banks, 2 voted for the Cuban Mesa. But Banks advances to the semifinals to meet Esteban Flores of Puerto Rico in this featherweight division. We'll be back with Todd Foster from Great Falls against George Kelman of Antigua in the light welterweight division in just a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next match is in the 63.5 kilogram, 139-pound weight category. In the red corner from the United States of America, Todd Foster. And in the blue corner from Antigua, George Kelman.
So Todd Foster in his first outing at 139 pounds will meet George Kelman of Antigua. 20-year-old Todd Foster from Great Falls, Montana, the national Golden Glove champion this year, won the Olympic Festival and the Pan Am box-off. George Kelman, 26 years of age, been boxing for 5 years, and is coached by former world champion Maurice Hope, a native Antiguan. And it is Kelman in the red and Todd Foster in the blue USA shirt.
Kelman hit Todd Foster with a good stiff left jab, Tim. Looks like a very strong guy. But I like this Foster. He takes advantage of every opportunity, throws beautiful combinations, and keeps busy. Doesn't hit you with 1 punch. It's always 2 or 3.
There were 2 right there. His opponent, Kelman, was a kickboxer for 15 years, holds a black belt in that sport. His idol is Bruce Lee.
Very, very strong guy, Kelman, Tim. He's no kid.
Foster pressuring him early here.
He's in with a whirlwind when he's in with Todd Foster, I'll tell you that.
Talking with Andrew Maynard, the American light heavyweight here on the Pan Am team, about Todd Foster. He said, I like this guy. I'm learning from him. He says, I like the way he throws punches from all angles.
That's right, Tim. He gets the angle on you. He's got a good platform, bounces from side to side, gets you a little bit off, and then hits you 4 or 5 punches, just like he did then.
Born in Missoula, Montana. I know Brent Musburger's watching this one with special interest as he spent some time out there in the west in the state of Montana.
Well, we found out that Kelman can take a punch, Tim. And Foster is bleeding a little bit from the mouth. Must have been from that first stiff left jab that Kelman landed.
Todd, coached by his father, Vern Foster, along with Dean Kromerick. Of course, Roosevelt Sanders, the head coach of the U.S. squad.
Always comes back with that left hand after he drops a right.
Under a minute to go, round 1. We are live from the Convention Center in Indianapolis. Pan American boxing action. American squad winning their first meeting against a Cuban boxer, Kelsey Banks, just moments ago in the featherweight division, beating Arnaldo Mesa. And advancing to the semifinals at 125 pounds.
Foster makes faces like he's in pain when he's fighting, Tim.
He does, but I think it probably represents his intense concentration. He sees his target so well, and he's just really boring in all the time. Solid right by Foster. That'll bring an 8 count for George Kelman from referee Maurice Castillo of El Salvador. And that's the end of round number 1, and they don't realize it. They don't realize it. The referee does not realize. Now they've stopped it. The judge is helping out the referee. The round had been completed. And we'll be back with round 2 in a moment. Round number 2. Todd Foster from Great Falls, Montana. George Kelman from Antigua. Good opening round for the American Foster, as we saw.
Tim, this Kelman is a strong guy, but he's not going to output.
Oh, big right hand.
There he goes.
Foster absolutely crushed him. Kelman saying he's all right. Boy, that was a tremendous shot.
And look at the strength of this guy, Tim. He got up. I was going to say, the only way he could win is if he nailed Foster and knocked him out, and Foster nailed him.
He's still in trouble. He's trying to make it look like he isn't, but Foster's stalking him.
Look at the way he goes back with that hook, Foster. What a good-looking fighter he is.
They're going to stop it. Well, let's see. No, are they or aren't they? Yes, they are. Referee Castillo has stopped the fight, and Todd Foster, with a knockout here early in round 2, advances in the 139-pound division. That one clean right hand was the damaging blow.
What a good-looking fighter he is, Tim, and it was more than the one good right hand. Those combinations set up that big punch, and boy, did he nail him.
We'll have another look at it. The victory sends Foster into the quarterfinals of the light welterweight division.
Little feint, and there's the right hand right over the jab, and down he goes.
Tremendous shot by Todd Foster. And so Foster finds himself in excellent position. He'll meet the winner of the bout between Asif Dar of Canada and Oscar Catone of Argentina in his quarterfinal round. So now let's return here to the broadcast center and Brent Musburger.
All right, Tim, and someday all those good folks at Great Falls want you and Gil to come out there and broadcast his professional debut. It'll be a great setting for you. Now, in basketball, the United States team rolls again, eliminating Uruguay, and this team should have no trouble at all winning the gold medal. But, you know, so much of the time, we talk about the basketball and the boxing and all the big-time sports. And Ann Butler, come on in here and give us a little relief, a little change of pace this time of the afternoon.
I'll be happy to, Brent. We should talk about those sports, but I've had a unique opportunity to sample some of the real varieties of these Pan American Games. And tickets, for the most part, are available for all of the major sports. But last Friday night, I went to check out the newest Pan American sport, one most people have never seen before. And wouldn't you know it, that was the hottest ticket in town.
The event bears the somewhat unfamiliar name of Taekwondo, but outside the arena it sounds more like the Super Bowl or World Series.
Air conditioning. Tickets, anyone need Taekwondo tickets? Taekwondo tickets. 30 apiece, 30 apiece.
There's standing room only here at the Indiana-Purdue University Gymnasium. This is the official debut of Taekwondo competition at the Pan Am Games, and this is one of the first events to sell out completely a couple of months ago. The fans here are psyched for some real martial arts action, and a special delegation from Korea provided an opening ceremony that did not disappoint. After the pomp and circumstance, which is always a part of the sport's tradition, it was time for the Koreans to show off skills that conjure up images of Bruce Lee. And while most of the crowd enjoyed the show, there were at least a couple of Hoosiers who did not know exactly what to make of it. What do you think so far?
Well, it's been all right, I guess. It's going to take a while to get used to it, but it seems to be a good sport.
Yeah, it's not bad. Not near as bad as football.
Kicking and punching are at the heart of Taekwondo. A match consists of 3 3-minute rounds with a 1-minute rest break in between. Matches are won by either knockouts, which are rare, or by scoring the most points caused by trembling shock, blows that land with impact. But the game's attraction seems to extend well beyond the competition mat.
Taekwondo teach discipline and respect. Many children practicing Taekwondo, and they bring better report card. They show good respect to their parents and teachers.
Friday night, 2 Americans went for the gold. Paul Lee, a flyweight, entered the match with high hopes, but it was not to be Paul's night. But for Steve Kapner, a lightweight from Billings, Montana, it was another story. Kapner made it through 4 matches to win the gold medal, the first for an American.
Once I started fighting, I realized how many people were counting on me, and it's easier for me to do something for other people than it is for myself. It was beautiful. It's beautiful. I loved it, every second of it. It really makes me proud to represent the United States of America.
And a well-deserved congratulations to Steve Kapner from Billings, Montana. By the way, I understand you got some literature from that venue.
Oh, yes, I will never again call it karate.
No.
Now I know what my children have been doing in the living room all these years.
That's right.
Taekwondo. Okay, let's get a... Ann, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's get a wrap-up on the boxing. Let's send you back now to Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy. Tim?
All right, Brent, it's been a good day for the Americans. All 3 of the team members advancing today, and Todd Foster just moments ago with a dramatic second-round knockout of George Kelman of Antigua. You certainly unloaded a big right hand, Todd.
Yeah, he was dropping his left down to my body, so I saw it coming, so I just went over the top with it.
Andrew Maynard, your light heavyweight team member, says he's been learning from you, trying to get more punches in from more angles.
Yeah, I saw him trying to steal my punches there, my moves, but that's all the best to him because anything that's going to help him, I'd like to be a part of it.
You know, Todd, I like the way you put your punches together. You're really a well-schooled fighter. Anytime that right hand comes out, the left hook goes back automatically.
That's due to a lot of good coaching I've had all through the years. Dean Cromerick, Emmett Murphy, my father, Kenny Weldon, and Lou Duva.
Well, that right hand belongs to you. We're going to show it to you back again one more time.
Well, here you can see I'm setting it up, and there goes his left hand dropping down, so I just went right over the top with it.
How far can you go in this?
Oh, I can go all the way. All my teammates are going to go all the way. I got to be there with them.
All right. There's Todd Foster from Great Falls, Montana. You got a special fan that we're going to throw it to now because he's a Montana guy. Brent Musburger back in the broadcast center.
On and win that gold medal. I know everyone back in Big Sky Country is pulling for you. We're going to have a recap and take a look back at what has been another busy afternoon here in Indianapolis when we continue in just a moment. The Goodyear blimp of America was still another view of Indianapolis. Part of that haze we had earlier today is starting to burn off. Down there somewhere, Butler University, the Hinkle Fieldhouse, the United States women and Peru are tied. 1 game apiece so far. How about down at Market Square Arena? Let's go to Vern Lundquist for a look at our United States basketball performance today. Vern?
Thank you, Brent. Panama and Puerto Rico are warming up right now at Market Square Arena. They do so after the United States once again was very impressive today. A 105-81 victory over an outgunned Uruguayan team. I'm here with Billy Packer, and we watched an American team that exploded in moments of the second half using their tip quickness and depth, such as this great stuff by Rick Chapman, Bill.
Super pass off that time by Willie Anderson. This team is so good on the move, and there you see Pooh Richardson behind his back and through his legs to Purvis Ellison. And then the last play of the game, just a lob by Jeff Lebo up in the air to Keith Smart, knowing that there's no height at which he can't go to grab that ball.
7 players in double figures for the Americans. Next game will be against either Panama or Puerto Rico. Any problem for the U.S.?
Well, I really don't think so, although Puerto Rico has great athletes. They've already beaten Panama, and I think that you got to look at Brazil as being the one team that maybe could give them a run before this is all over.
Americans are 6-0 in the competition. Next game is next Thursday. Right now, let's go to Dick Stockton for an update on track and field.
And these are the final medal standings in track and field in the Pan American Games. And keep in mind that U.S. women won 13 gold medals, breaking their previous high of 11, and the men also won 13. They only won 6 in Caracas, and they reaffirmed their dominance in the sprints. Now, in the women's 4x400 relay, the final standings in the United States won impressively, setting a new Pan American Games record. Canada won the silver and Jamaica the bronze. We thought that might be a close race. It was a runaway for the United States. But we have a controversy that's still in the air in the men's 4x400. And you're going to take a look now at the final runners. Roddy Haley of the United States, Roberto Hernandez, and one runner cut the other off, and then they went the other way, Craig.
Look at Hernandez step right in front of Haley. You can't do that. They're on the turn, and Haley fell back a bit. Haley has been sick lately. He's had bronchitis, but he gets to the home stretch, and all his great instincts come out. He runs a great home stretch run to take the lead back just before the finish line, but then he steps in front of Hernandez.
So we had a double red flag foul, and of course that has not been sorted out as of yet. The time, however, was outstanding, 2:59.34. Right now we have to break as you take a look at the finish for our national anthem. Gray winning the gold medal in the men's 800-meter final. Red wine was also involved there. Another great United States victory. And it looks as if Roddy Haley is being taken off. One of the 4x400 runners. I'm not sure it is Roddy Haley, so we won't say for sure, but one of the Americans is being taken off on a stretcher.
Haley was the one, Dick, of course, who had bronchitis. It is possible with that tremendous stretch run that he did tire himself out.
All right, so we're reaching the conclusion, and of course it ends up with an American being taken off, and of course a double foul, and we haven't gotten a final determination, although we can tell you it is the U.S. anchorman Roddy Haley who is being carried off right now. But basically, as you saw in the medal standings, it has been a successful and also controversial at times track and field event at these Pan American Games. Mary Slaney, let me ask you, this entire week, what was the memorable moment for you?
Dick, I think there's absolutely no dispute in my mind. It's Jackie Joyner-Kersee's world record equalization in the long jump. Absolutely fantastic.
All right, Craig?
Well, you know, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, she's the greatest American athlete since Jim Thorpe. Certainly I'm in agreement with
Track
Mary
and
there.
field is history here for Craig and Mary. Dick Stockton saying so long. Let's send it back now to Brent Musburger.
All right, Dick, I want to remind everybody that we do have some cut-ins coming up in the International Golf Tournament, which is to follow. And obviously, we're going to find out what was wrong with Haley and get that word right to you. That becomes a major development here, and also some other stories coming along. We'll see how the United States women do against Peru. A quick look at the medals. Certainly no surprise. I'm not sure that this is the most important part of the Pan American Games. As expected, we are racking up the gold medals. Again, as I pointed out for the last 2 days, I think the Canadian performance here has been extremely strong. So a reminder, I've already mentioned it. Coming up next here on CBS, we have got the final round of the International. Very unique scoring system. You want to be there when Jim Nantz takes you through it. It's somewhat complex. A par really doesn't mean much. You want to be an aggressive golfer if you can. Also, on our way to the International, next Saturday we'll be back with more coverage from Indianapolis at 1 Eastern Time, right here as we reach the final weekend in these Pan American Games. And again, we will have an update on Haley's condition just as soon as we can get it. And right now, that wraps it up for all of us here at Indianapolis. I'm Brent Musburger. We certainly hope you've enjoyed our weekend coverage of the 10th Pan American Games from Indianapolis. So long, everybody.
Sports coverage of the 10th Pan American Games is sponsored by the Coca-Cola Company and your local Coca-Cola bottler. The Prudential, offering a full range of insurance and other financial services. 3M, worldwide sponsor of the 1988 Olympic Games. And by Michelob Light, superb taste and less filling beer.
Out with a tribute to the many outstanding gold medal performances by our American Pan Am athletes.